started with the meeting. We'll start off with the invocation by Commissioner Thomas, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us.
Please join me. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We just thank you for this time that we can come together and do our county's business. We just ask your blessings upon each and every person here, commissioners and citizens alike, and all those watching at home. May we all just have a heart to serve and do what's best for our county. Your blessings always. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes?
I may want to make a change in...
Microphone, please.
I may want to make a change in the analysis of one of my agenda items.
You want to pull it?
Nope, just want to make a change in it.
I'd like to pull agenda item number 9 on consent for discussion, please. We have a change.
I'd like to pull 6 and 8.
6 and 8 and 9. Okay, any more changes? Your motion?
Motion to approve with noted changes. Second the motion.
Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. All right, we have 2 citizens to be heard now. Katie, do you have any?
I do, but they didn't specify.
Okay, if you fill out a citizens to be heard card, you can talk now, or you can talk at the end of the meeting. Just give me the cards and I'll call the names out. Just, if you want to speak now, come on. If you don't, just say I'll speak at the end. Bob? But if you can't, if you speak now, you can't speak again at the end. You got to pick one or the other.
Well, I figure, my name is Bob Danzy. Thank you for letting me speak now, and I'll try to be brief. I figure that the wetlands issue will be top of the charts tonight. So I want to go ahead and say a few words about that. You know, we've had a lot of discussion, and the number $600,000 has been brought up a lot of times. I know Commissioner Kessler probably doesn't like to hear that number, but honestly, it's true. It may be more, it could be less, but it's pretty close. I understand why he doesn't like to hear it. It's because it's not very popular, and it doesn't sound very good, to be honest with you, when you think of the county spending that much money on an ordinance that was an overreach in the first place. And the why I say overreach is because, do you know that Crum and Tucker, they filed lawsuits against it, in essence. I guess not against the ordinance itself, but we filed the ordinance wrong. But the county went after them with this ordinance. The county filed the ordinance incorrectly, so it got struck down from that perspective. But we still spent money on it, and we still paid out settlements to both of them. Log Creek went after the ordinance, but they actually went after the ordinance. The ordinance was overreaching and overbearing and didn't give enough information to a person that's in trouble with that ordinance. Judge Saul said that Judge Saul struck it down, the ordinance down. It was beaten fair and square in court because he said that it doesn't give people enough leeway in knowing what they've done wrong and how to correct it. Then it was appealed, and I believe it's the First Circuit judge, I think I have that right, but I know it was appealed, and the next judge that heard it struck it down also. So this was an overreaching, overbearing ordinance in the beginning. That's why it's important to move forward with our agenda item number 1 tonight. Thank you.
Chris Russell?
I'll go now,
You going now? All right.
I brought an exhibit for you.
Got cookies? All right. Are they real? You didn't cook them, did you?
I did.
He had 4.
I did.
Yeah, in his pocket.
My daughter did said the other day she used Dr. Seuss to explain something to somebody. She said it made it pretty basic. Tonight we're going to have a contentious issue. There's no doubt about it. There are cookies out there, and there's cookies with icing. Some has red, some blue, some green, some doesn't have it. And the analogy here is, that's how this issue is. Some are a little red on it, some are a little blue, some are a little green, some have none, some have all of it. But underneath all that icing, just like our citizens, is still somebody. And so when you come here tonight to discuss issues, remember that. Everyone has a stake in this game. So when you look under the icing, it doesn't matter what color it is. That person may be soft, they may be hard, heck, they may be half-baked, who knows? They're still human. Let's get along, let's move past this when we can. The fact of the matter is we're all vested citizens here in the county on this issue. So I'm just hoping we can set that tone here that let's get along, move forward, and do the right thing with this. And what you might see as right, I might not see as right, but in the end, we are neighbors. And let's use the cookie analogy. And yes, I did make them, so if you get sick, I apologize. But looking forward to a good meeting, and I hope it turns out well. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Chris Langston? You gonna do now, Chris?
Gentlemen, commissioners, thank you. I'm going to share with you a little experience that I had this past Crab Festival in St. Mark's. My name's Chris Langston. I'm a local real estate and landowner here in the county. In St. Mark's, there was a booth put up by an organization, Save Our Wetlands, and of course they did it without permission, to advertise and further their cause. And their purpose was to gather signatures on a petition to ultimately try to overturn the BoC's decision to remove this ordinance. And of course I represent the owner in this, and he of course has the riparian rights down to the river's edge on St. Mark's River. I asked a young lady that was requesting my signature on this, I asked her, could she explain to me how exactly this petition would affect our rights as property owners here in the county. This lot is, of course, 100 by 100. She had no answer. I was not discussing this in an adversarial manner. I wasn't trying to argue with her or anything. But when I explained to her the one issue of this referendum, if it's passed and reinstated, that the very lot that she was standing on with the 75-foot setback would basically render it useless. And she didn't believe me. Well, at that time, I politely asked Miss Kessler, who was there, and she was privy to the entire conversation. She kind of redirected and said it would be better discussed with her husband, and he needed to address these issues. One thing I did learn through talking with the individuals that were trying to get this petition is they're trying to mask their true agenda by referring to this as voting rights. Well, when in essence it's nothing more than taking a private property owner's rights. Through government regulation, which I feel is, of course, a government overreach. I read recently where Jack Rudlow made the statement in a local newspaper saying basically to hell with property rights. Well, I as a property owner don't feel that way. And a lot of the property that I have and the people that I represent, I can guarantee you, they don't feel that way either. That's absurd. Constituents of Wakulla are allowed reasonable, and I say reasonable setbacks for the preservation of our wetlands, and I can say that's already put in place by the state of Florida. Now, if you turn around and you come back further than that, then you are getting outside the realm of reasonable. You're getting into a government overreach, and I think the precedent's already been set through a couple of previous lawsuits. And I'll be honest, if this goes into account, you're going to create what is a lawyer's dream, and that is enough members are going to be created for a class action lawsuit, which ultimately, guys, I can tell you, taxpayers are going to be up to fund that. Thank you.
James Hennessy, now or later?
There are a lot of things I could correct about the previous speaker, but one thing for sure, we did have a registered booth at that the Stone Crab Festival, so that's not true at all. The petition to drive to place the future of our wetlands in the hand of the Wakulla voters is going well. I know this both from the overwhelmingly positive response that we are getting from citizens and from the increasingly desperate, deceptive, and often mean-spirited tactics of those opposing this democratic solution. A few weeks ago at the Planning and Zoning meeting in this very room, we were treated to the spectacle of Mr. Wesolowski, one of only 3 in attendance who spoke in support of the BoCC's planned comprehensive plan changes, who was supposed to be an example of a Wakulla County landowner being deprived of his property rights by the current wetlands regulations. Somehow, he managed to get on WCTV the next evening and plead his victimhood again without any attempt by the station to present an opposing view. Parenthetically, when I contacted the station, they apologized for their totally biased presentation. Public records reveal that Mr. Wesolowski is not a Wakulla County resident, but he's a realtor who lives in Havana, Florida. He purchased the property in question, which consists largely of wetlands, this past January for $5,900 on a foreclosure sale, and currently has it on the market for more than 4 times that amount. And he stands to make even more if our ordinances are repealed. I highly doubt that he was unaware of the local regulations at the time of purchase the same year. But this is the type of property rights victim that Mr. Thomas and the 3 other commissioners are championing. Real estate developers, often from outside Wakulla County, looking to make a quick profit. Mr. Thomas's attack on the Wetlands Alliance in his recent letter to the editor of the News is another example of this type of misrepresentation. He never addresses, even once, in his lengthy letter why the local protections of our wetlands are not necessary, or why citizens should not be allowed to vote on the issue. Instead, he attempts to divert the reader's attention with baseless accusations about a citizen group that has nothing to gain in the wetlands debate but preservation of our unique environment for future generations and the actualization of local control through the ballot box. He tries to make living near wetlands in his article a disqualification for members of the Wetlands Alliance, while failing to mention that the big money supporting the repeal all have property interests that includes wetlands. Mr. Thomas has the audacity to accuse Alliance members of being selfish when his entire position rests on the view that self-interest trumps reasonable community needs. This argument becomes truly bizarre and paranoid when he tries to raise the specter that the previous fellow went way beyond this. I'm just finishing this sentence. He tries to raise the specter that this time-limited, nonpartisan, all-volunteer organization has some dark hidden agenda that we will unleash if we succeed in the petition drive. Perhaps, after citizens get a voice on the wetlands issue, we may propose the radical idea that public officials treat their constituents with honesty and respect, and that they represent the greater good rather than the interests of a few.
Charles Hickman? Mr. Hickman, you want to speak now or at the end? I'll speak now. Okay.
My name is Charles Hickman, live at 528 Hickorywood Drive, and I'm going to change the subject a little bit, since we can speak on other issues. I followed with great interest the development of our budget, and I saw just how many different departments were really hammered to reduce their cost. And then, in a previous meeting here, a 3.6% increase was granted to you gentlemen if you wish to accept it. I appreciate those who decided not to accept it, because I felt that that was totally uncalled for. And it's something that you are a government by the people. You are not the people. You are not the individuals who are supposed to be sitting up there and passing judgment in whatever field you wish. This is something that I just found appalling when I read it in the newspaper. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Anderson?
Wanted to speak briefly on taxes too, since each of us have gotten our real property tax bills from the county, and we constantly get our utility bills, all of which contain very stiff taxes. I think this county now, with the tax on utilities and real property, is the highest of all the contingent counties around it. And I know that Commissioner Moore has been authorized to negotiate the possible purchase of 158 additional acres when you're already into the reserves on the budget. And as part of that, I'd like to see also, if you've done any study, that if you do buy that for soccer fields, what is the cost of grading the land going to be, reseeding it, running utilities to it, building restrooms, putting in lights, putting in roads, putting in parking? All of those costs ought to be considered in addition to buying the land if you're considering to do that. Briefly on the on the wetlands, at the present time, both the Mashes Sand beaches and the Shell Point beaches are closed due to unhealthy pollution in the water and unsafe conditions. It's on your county website. It's by the Health Department. In Pensacola, Florida, the Navy had a similar problem at their air base, and the report from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, in that case, the U.S. Navy had a policy of no net loss of wetlands. Part of the long-term management plan is to develop vegetation buffers around the wetland areas, discourage pedestrian and pet access, plant vegetated buffer strips of vegetation to intercept the flow of runoff and manage the use of pesticides and herbicides. While the Navy is putting in buffers to solve their problem, you're eliminating the buffers here when our beaches are closed. How are you going to get tourists down here? How are you going to spend the money when you're on your website and the beaches are closed pollution and you're eliminating the wetlands that filter that water? Consider what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, David or Louis, who's handling the public hearing?
Sorry about that. Louis?
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. This first item is for the transmittal of a comprehensive plan text amendment amending policy 2.3 and repealing policy 4.1 of the conservation element pertaining to wetlands. Attachment 2, starting on page 5, is the actual strike-through underline that would be transmitted. As you know, the proposed amendment will remove the county's requirement for a 75-foot buffer around wetlands and the standards for impacts to wetlands and for mitigation in favor of the state's standards for buffers and wetland protection. If approved for transmittal, the amendment will come back to the board probably in January for final adoption. We also will at some point have to come back to you and address the wetlands ordinance, which is still in the Code of Ordinances. So what we're discussing this evening is just the comprehensive plan text amendment.
I make a motion we approve to conduct the public hearing and vote to transmit the proposed comprehensive plan amendment for the amending of policy 2.3 and repealing of policy 4.1 of the conservation element pertaining to wetlands.
Second. Okay, I'm going to let the citizens talk, okay? Again, we're addressing the comp plan, which is a 75-foot buffer. We have 23 people to speak. Everybody's going to get a minute and a half. So everybody can talk. Everybody's getting a minute and a half, Jack. Please respect the time so everybody else can follow behind you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call the name, and I'll call the next person. I'll say next speaking.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I understand there's a need to have a timely meeting, but reducing it to a minute and a half, I think, could be considered excessive.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like you to reconsider and at least have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I said a while ago I wasn't going to make arbitrary. If it was more than 10, I'd say 2 minutes. If it was more than 20, I'd say a minute and a half. I think I mentioned that several meetings ago, so at least I'm being, even if you don't like it, I'm being consistent. I'll say followed by such and such. Please, if you would, I put reserved on this chair here. If you're the next one to speak, if you'd please come on up. That'll just make it a lot easier for everybody. David Wolosky, followed by Taylor Phillips.
Evening, David Weslowski. Property address is Ariana Cove, and I don't live there. And I could spend my time addressing some of the issues the gentleman brought up from last meeting, but minute and a half I won't. I'll be here after the meeting if anybody wants to talk to me about that. 4 of you voted to repeal the wetlands policy, and I appreciate you doing your research and due diligence and giving people back their property rights like the rest of the state have, and letting the state regulate this issue. One of you didn't, and Mr. Kessler, Commissioner Kessler, and I would respect your position more, Mr. Kessler, if I didn't notice that on the property appraiser website it shows your dwelling was built from the measurement tool on there around 50 feet from your water, and that's on Levy Bay Road. And I have an aerial I'd like to submit to the record in 2007 with one dwelling there, and it changed in 2010. There was another dwelling built about larger than the same size, which was built less than 75 feet from the water. And I'm sure it was done, it was legal, it was permitted. I'm just asking that the rest of the county be able to do the same thing.
Thank you. Taylor Phillips, followed by Chuck Hess.
My name is Taylor Phillips. I've been living in Wakulla County for 10 years. I speak in favor of protecting the wetlands. Wetlands are a benefit to our fishing, tourism, and oyster industries. The ground here is porous. Whatever finds its way into the ground will eventually find its way into the ocean. The wetlands provide a natural filtration system. Protecting them, not protecting the wetlands decreases the business environment. Wetlands offer a natural storm protection. When a hurricane comes along, the wetlands protect us against flooding. They absorb the energy. The bigger they are, the bigger the wetland area is, the safer we all are. Thank you.
Thank you. Chuck Hess, followed by Jack Rudlow.
Chuck Hess, 112 Lake Ellen Circle. Well, I guess I'll have longer comments later, but basically, I'm opposed to this action. You have no scientific data or evidence to support your action, and this will have detrimental impacts to our fishing and our bird life community, our bird community in the county. Now, since being a fisherman and a bird watcher, this will personally affect my activities, and I find it appalling that you're moving forward with this activity. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Rudlow, followed by Bob Danzy.
So once again, you're going to make Wakulla County the laughing stock of Florida and push through this ordinance. I was very tempted to come up and recite the Jabberwocky for you, because it wouldn't matter what I said, stood on my head, or anybody else here in this room. Your minds are made up. This is a done deal. Okay, congratulations, gentlemen. We will meet you in battle. But it's a stupid thing to divide this county at a lousy time when the economics are falling apart to create this moronic issue, which is unnecessary for no particular reason, and to try to steal our rights to vote. All of you got elected by a small percentage of the population. You won, yes, you did, but not by that much. You don't represent me. You don't represent these people in this room. You're representing yourselves. I'm going to ask you to reconsider before the circus goes on and gets worse, because people are laughing at Wakulla County. They've laughed at us for years because stupid stuff like this goes on. And as far as my statement about the wetlands and be damned to private property, you damn private property every single day with your taxation, with your rules, with your basically saying you're going to to allow, code officers to go ahead and levy and put fines and everything else against us, against your building inspectors, all of that's good because you can make bucks in real estate. Mr. Moore is a carpetbagger. Mr. Moore will sell this county out. Good luck, and we'll meet you in battle.
Thank you. Bob Danzy, followed by Chris Russell.
Thank you. My name is Bob Danzy. I live and work in this county. What supports this amendment is the county's budget. It's already in the files. The budget shows that the county cannot afford to hire a professional wetland scientist. With or without a scientist on staff, the county and its taxpayers could be held liable for a taking of property, as happened to the state in the Water Management District in Coons versus St. John's River, or St. John's Water Management District, a case before the United States Supreme Court. I think that the data analysts in the county's files also show hundreds of thousands of dollars that the taxpayers spent because Commissioner Kessler attempts to take wetlands and wetlands buffers in Panacea and Spring Creek. In defense of wetlands ordinance that Judge Saul struck down, I'm reading this into the record, and I have both of those legal cases on here. So that being said, one time I made a statement about you couldn't walk your dog in the wetlands. There was a gentleman that just got up here and said, you can't do that, and don't make a profit.
Thank you. Chris Russell, followed by James Hennessy.
Thanks for letting me speak again. I don't know why I had to follow Bob each time. I'm just saying.
Just the way the cards were in order.
The height thing.
Change them.
Love you, brother. Hey, I support the wetlands. I support protecting them. Matter of fact, some would say I have a career in environmental work. I really do. I really think we have a good opportunity here to put it back on the state and let them do what they've always done and get a little tighter. And we've had the commitment. We had a good forum down here where people talked about that. Yes, people are looking at Wakulla County laughing. By God, is this not better than Comedy Central right here tonight? I mean, come on, the cookies didn't work apparently. Think about it. It's just icing. Underneath, we're still citizens, we're still neighbors, we're still friends. I would like to throw one thing out. I don't see Mr. Roberts here, but he may be here. I presented facts up here twice. I put them up here. I've sat here. I've said I'd meet people afterwards. I put them in the paper. There are facts. The facts are we'll still have protection. That's a fact. We'll still have regulators going out. FEMA's not raising flood rates because of the wetlands. These are all facts. I have them here again. Please come dispute them with me. I have them. I present them. They're in the paper. No one's done it. There's been lawsuits, yes. Let's not harbor on that too much. It is an issue on it, Fifth Amendment right, but let's stick to the facts of the wetlands. Let's not make it personal anymore. So I support you moving forward with this. I would ask that you do, not let this be the end of the road. Let's keep this alive, though. Let's remember, we may have to come back and address it. If the state fails, we need to pick up the ball and run with it. Thanks for your time to speak.
Thank you. James Hennessy, followed by Charles Hickman.
I guess I would just like to say, I know I sent the link to all of the commissioners today for this Planner's Guide to Wetlands Buffers for Local Governments. I don't know if any of you read it. If you did, apparently you didn't understand it. But this is a very detailed document presenting research about buffers all over the country, including many places in Florida that have model wetlands ordinances that include specific buffers. And we should not be doing the minimum here. We have a uniquely vulnerable area, and a gentleman earlier referenced this. We have karst limestone, we have sandy soil, pollution runs right through it directly to the wetlands, and it's going to pollute it quicker than anything else. It's not the same as even in Tallahassee with red clay soil. So if you think that the things that are okay in Tallahassee are okay here, then you just don't understand the science. And I encourage you to at least read this, and maybe sometime you'll wake up in the middle of the night and say, my God, what have I done? We need to stop this.
Charles Hickman, followed by Carmen Sturcio.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Charles Hickman, 528 Hickorywood Drive, and I do support the wetlands. And I take issue with the fact that Mr. Danzy got up here and proceeded to construe some things that happened several years ago. There was a fairly large group of citizens that were selected by the County Commission to research and come up with the current ordinance. They did so. They put it before DEP. I know because I was there in that meeting, as well as your attorney. And they lauded, in other words, they complimented Wakulla County on coming up with a very, not only reasonable, but a model wetlands ordinance. Now, piece by piece, it appears you want to tear it apart. I guess the thing that it boils down to is I keep hearing one term, isolated wetland. Gentlemen, there is no isolated wetland. A wetland is a wetland is a wetland. It is based on plant life, hydrology, and soil. And whenever people were talking about wetlands, many people don't realize even that pine trees grow in wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you. Carmen, followed by Bill Anderson.
My name is Carmen Sturchow. I live in Sopchoppy, and I'm here to say that we really need to keep our wetlands ordinance. It's a way to hold back the destruction that is happening in our county. I'm from Santa Barbara, and when I go back to see my sister, there are so many days that they ask the older people and people with compromised health to stay inside because of all the pollution. And we live in a rural area, and already we can't go to in our waters. We can't get our seafood. We need to take every step we can to keep the coast healthy, balanced, and beautiful. Thank you, Howard Kessler, for all you've done. Richard, you know better. And you guys, there's so much. You think you'll gain so much for abolishing this ordinance, but it's so short-lived. You know, our lives are so brief, but you're leaving a legacy that is going to be passed on, that it's not going to be pretty. We really need to do all we can to keep this county beautiful and healthy, balanced. Please rethink this.
Thank you. Bill Anderson, followed by Mary Cortez.
In the brief time I have, I want to go back through a few facts. That in 2010, a Citizens Advisory Committee made a scientific study, and they were experts in the field, and they proposed the wetland ordinance, which was unanimously adopted. Mr. Chairman, you on June 17th of this year thought that there may be an issue with that ordinance, and you proposed an amendment and asked for the staff to look at it. And if there is a problem, that's the way to proceed, I think, look at an amendment. On July 15th, the board had changed their opinion. You then directed the staff to eliminate the ordinance and amend the COP plan. You refused to hold any public forum where people could get experts or you could hear experts on the subject, but the Democratic Party held such a forum composed of 4 experts. 3 of those experts were all in favor of retaining the buffers that we have, including Mr. Cerna, the Director of Planning and Zoning, stated his personal opinion that he was for retaining them. On October 14th, the Planning and Zoning Commission considered this issue, and under questioning, Mr. Cerna said there was no scientific evidence in your data and data analysis to support what you're doing, eliminating this ordinance. He said it was the staff opinion that this should be done. I don't know what staff, because he stated his own personal opinion that it should be retained. But in a memo that he has written to the file regarding a conversation with you, Mr. Chairman, on September 27th, he says the phone call with Randy Merritt regarding wetland amendment data and analysis. The primary justification should be that the state ERP process has changed. You come up with a problem, you look at reasons. Here, you don't have any reasons, as he said, on data and analysis. You're looking for a justification
Okay, Bill.
to justify what you're doing.
Thank you. Mary
Thank
Cortez.
you.
Thank you. Barry Cortez, followed by you, Taylor.
Mary Cortez, 1357 Dr. Martin Luther King Road, Crawfordville. I'm against the repeal of the Wakulla, the wetlands ordinance, and it's brought upon us that you are proposing this as a property rights issue, but there's been no proof or no findings that anyone has denied building on their property. It seems to me this is not a personal property rights issue, but a developer's right issue. And we probably don't need many more buildings here that are not being lived in our county. Again, I'm against the repeal of the Wakulla Wetlands Ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Hugh, you need a minute? Followed by Jonah Snelling.
I always have to follow her. What's the deal?
Again, that's just the way the cards.
Happy Beach Closed Wetlands Day, folks. You want me to be brief? For 10 years, my wife and I have been working on our place on Martin Luther King Road to open a tourist-related business. So we are stakeholders in this proposition. And the short answer, or the short comment, is compromised wetlands, compromised tourist industry. There's been no science. This is a solution looking for a problem, political solution. To be brief, what you are doing is a sin. And how you are doing it is appalling, hypocritical buggery. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonas Snelling.
Evening,
followed by
gentlemen.
Victor Lambu.
Glad to be here. Grew up right here in Wakulla County. I've been here almost 29 years on this earth right here in this county, and I've seen the steady decline of our environment and with our coastlines, including our freshwater springs. And I'm glad Hugh just spoke about tourism, because the crown jewel of our tourist attraction here in Wakulla County, the glass bottom boat ride, isn't available. Y'all should all come down. Ask about taking a glass bottom boat ride at Wakulla Springs, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen tomorrow or the next day. So you can go ahead and count that out. Just so long as you want to move forward with whatever plans you all have in mind, you can be sure that it's going to prolong the problems that we see there every day, and most likely worsen them also. So I encourage you to have a change of mind, because this isn't just my home, but it's our home. So, good day.
Thank you. Victor Lambu, followed by Danita Lambu.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen. First, I want to speak for the Wakulla Wetlands Alliance, and I'm not going to speak long. I'm passing you a letter that states our position there, and we don't believe that you have the proper data analysis or supporting data to support this. Secondly, I would like to speak as a private citizen. I know you're cutting 2/3 of my time down. This is a terrible proposal, and you will be impacting me as an individual. I like to eat local seafood, and this is going to hurt it. They provide the habitat, the wetlands provide the habitat for the plants I spend so much time observing and studying as aquatic ecologists. Wetlands provide the beautiful nature scenery that I spend so much time observing. Wetlands provide the habitat, food, and place for reproduction for so many of the animals, birds, and vertebrates that I get great enjoyment from observing. This is an important part of my life. Wetlands are the main reason I reside here and bought a homestead in Wakulla County. I'm not unique. Many of the people live here and visit here do so because of the wetlands. If the wetlands are destroyed, my investment be wasted. Please, please don't harm Wakulla's golden goose. This is what you're doing. Please don't kill it. And that's your only way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Danita Lambu, followed by Jenny Brock.
I'll be brief. My name's Danita Lambo. I live at 233 Bay Pine. I'm just concerned that the state wouldn't have as much concern over our local natural resources as we all in this room would, and I would prefer, and I think it's better to have local control rather than state control. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Brock, followed by Victor. I think you may have filled, Mr. Lambu, you may have filled 2 cards out.
I hope you're not using my time.
No.
Thank you.
Make sure Ms. Brock doesn't lose any time. Yes, I got your wife right here after that. Go ahead, Ms. Brock.
Jenny Brock, 311 Old Magnolia Road. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. As I was gathering petitions on the street where I live, every person that I came to signed the petition without hardly even any questions, except there were 2 households that wanted to wait and think about it. They took petitions anyway, thought they might return them to me later. Those 2 households were either relatives or friends of Commissioner Thomas's, and they did have a lot of questions. However, we had very long conversations about it. Then I went to the next household, and it was filled with about 10 people who were visiting a lady who owns the house but doesn't live there. They all live in Tallahassee. And they were all wishing they could sign the petition for me. They said, "We don't understand what you guys are doing down there. This is the craziest thing. What was all that whining and fussing about our spray fields and the water quality down there? Apparently, y'all don't really care what you do to your water quality. Tallahassee has to care what they do to it." So it is a big issue, and I can't believe that you are going to give up what you worked so hard to get, and that is protection for our wetlands and for our natural resources, and that is a very, very important part of the tourism for this county, and it does affect me personally. I hunt and fish here, but I guess it's not so bad because I have my own 100 acres of wetlands, which I don't plan to do anything to but walk on, plant pine trees, and look at it. I knew it was wetlands when I bought it. I'm not going to pretend it's anything else, and I think people who buy wetlands should know that's what they're getting. And I think it's time also for some accountability from our real estate people who don't tell people that they are buying wetlands.
Thank you. Ms. Lambu, followed by Steve Cushman.
Lorraine Lambu, I live at 272 Pine Lane. Gentlemen, I'm very disappointed with you guys, and it breaks my heart to see you want to do such a thing. You have children, you have grandchildren, they're all going to be living here, residing here. They all enjoy eating seafood. They all enjoy the beauty that we have here, the birds in flight, the trees, the tupelos. It's gorgeous here. I advertise to people out of town, my relatives, please come see us, see what we have here. We don't have a golden goose maybe that you think of it that way, but I think it's a treasure, and we have to hold on to this beautiful place we have here and think about our children and our grandchildren and those who come. These wetlands have been created millions of years ago. God created them. We didn't create them. They have a purpose, and their purpose is to filter the pollution, to keep our waters clean, our beaches clean, and they have a great purpose, and we should not fool with them. We should protect them. I heard that Australia will not allow any buildings around their wetlands, and I hooray for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
God bless you.
You too. Bonnie Sturcio, followed by Sandy Tedder.
I'm Bonnie Sturcio. Mine is going to be very short. I want to be on record to say that I firmly believe that our local wetlands protection should stay in place. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sandy Tedder, followed by Eugene Watkins.
I'm Sandy Tedder from Sopchoppy, and I opposed this proposal. My husband and I canoe and hike and swim in the local waters of our lakes and our coastline, and we like the swamps and we like the wetlands too. I mean, we are always out there. I think that if we go on like you're proposing, we're going to have much more pollution of our waters and much less places for recreation, and it affects not only me and my family, but almost everybody in the county. I think we've got to keep our local control and our local comp plan regulations. I think that is the best way we're going to be able to manage the land use in this county. And I would also like to see our citizens given the right to vote on this and not having to do it through a referendum. Thanks.
Thank you. Eugene Watkins, followed by Jackie Turner.
Hello, Eugene Watkins, Crawfordville, Florida. Eliminating the 75-foot buffer will affect my ability to catch grouper in Wakulla County and the surrounding offshore areas. Many of my favorite fishing reefs are labeled with the names of friends who caught their first grouper on the spot. Today, we do not catch our limit of 2 grouper on the same reefs where we used to catch our limit of 5 per person. I'm a scuba diver, and I can tell you that I've actually gone down and looked at these reefs, and I did not see the fish that were there long ago. Our 75-foot wetlands buffer serves as a filter to cleanse the wetlands which drain into the bay and the Gulf. If you eliminate the buffer, the reefs that my friends and I have fished for 20 years will degrade even more rapidly. The hundreds of dollars per month that we spend on a slip at Shields Marina and the bait and tackle that we buy at Crumbs and other businesses will disappear. Is this what you want? Please don't get rid of our 75-foot buffer. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie Turner, followed by David Damon.
Thank you. Jackie Turner, excuse me, I know where I live, 198 Mount Zion Road. Thank you for your time tonight. I'd just like to start by saying, according to Florida Agricultural and Consumer Services Commissioner Adam Putman, water policy is the most important long-range issue facing not only agriculture but all of Florida. In the Florida DEP report, Florida State of the Environment Wetlands, a guide to living with Florida's wetlands, the DEP discusses the many values of wetlands, and the report states, we know now that wetlands are more sensitive to alterations than we once believed. And then they go on to say that despite their value, wetlands are being eliminated. And I'd just like to close by saying, as many who have said before me, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm a little sappy. Forgive me. Give me a moment here. Okay, Jacqueline. See, that's usually when I would tell a joke. That'll snap me right out of it.
Works for me.
But one's not coming to me right now, so perhaps I'm just going to continue. So we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. Please keep the existing comprehensive plan wetland protection in place so we will not bankrupt our children's future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. David Damon, followed by Boris. I can try it if you want. Okay.
David Damon, Crawfordville. I'm speaking tonight as the unit commissioner for the Boy Scouts of America. On several occasions this past summer, we've had different things planned to do along the coast or to do at Wakulla Springs, and we've had to change our plans or cancel our plans because of the water quality. We can't even count on that. We take our kids and we have something set up, and we can't count on even being able to, the simplest thing, go to the beach and go in the water. We have to check for cuts. We have to give warnings. We have to call parents and say, listen, you know, we really want to do this. We can't do it because someone so might have a cut and you better not get in the water. That's crazy. The direction you guys are going is completely wrong. I mean, you've got it all backwards. We ought to be working hard to protect our water more. We ought to be doing things to protect it, to leave this legacy for our kids stronger than what you found it. But you're going backwards, completely backwards in this. You ought to be spending all this energy running sewer lines to every home along the coast. That's where we ought to be putting our energy. You ought to be doing things like working on the community center. That should be your legacy. Instead, look what all these people are having to come out and fight for. They're having to get petitions signed, which people are gladly signing. But all this energy because of what you guys are doing. What's up with that? I mean, seriously, do you go to bed at night and go to sleep easily? You shouldn't. If you do, you ought to be up all night thinking about what you're doing. This is terrible what you're leaving for our kids. It really is. Anyway, I just think it's a shame. It really is. It's a shame. Thank you.
Boris? Boris will be our last speaker on this issue this evening.
I'm sorry, but I believe that my voice will be like solar. I can tell you that I came from Soviet Union. 44 years I lived in society where I had no rights, no property rights, no human rights, no nothing, So I chose this country because it's Americans are law obedient. American Constitution, Bill of Rights are dominating, and only I would say only documents this society grew up to the point where it became world power and world respected until recently. What I see now, for good reason, people just take rights from other people. Yes, all this wetland, yes, everything needs to be saved, but don't forget that property right is one of the fundamental rights of this country. And I can tell you guys, I will just repeat what founding fathers said. John Adams, the moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, anarchy and tyranny commence. Property must be secured or liberty cannot exist. And we forget about it for good reason. Now I will remind you one more. The theory of communism may be summed up in the single sentence, abolition of property, of private property. Karl Marx, the Communist Manifesto.
Thank you, sir. All right. I don't have anything to say. You want to talk?
Sure. I'll kick it off. That's a tough one to follow. God bless you, Boris.
Are you going to tell the Tea Party you agreed with a former communist?
Boris is a good man.
You got a presentation you want to give, or you want to talk?
Yeah, but let me lead into it first, Katie, if you'll get it ready. My mother happens to be in the audience here, and she raised me to be truthful and to be honest with people and treat people fair. My father had a different slant on things. He told me, son, always make sure the tongue in your shoe lines up with the tongue in your mouth. And that's his way of saying, if you're going to walk the walk, then talk the talk. And I try to do that, and I try to be honest, and I try to engage with every person in this room and anyone who has wanted to engage me on this issue, and I try to be honest with folks. But I see a lot of folks that don't have the tongue in their mouth lined up with their tongue in their shoe. They keep telling us that they are trying to protect the environment. Yet at the same time, they live in a situation that they are trying to keep someone else from living in. And I don't understand that. I don't understand the hypocrisy. If someone truly believed that they protect the environment at all costs, they wouldn't live in those situations. They would turn their property over to a conservation easement, and then I would respect them, and they would have the courage of their conviction. And I think there are some people in that room, but there's a lot of people in here that they have it, and now they want to make sure that no one else has it. And I have a hard time with hypocrisy. If you could start that slideshow there. What we're looking for is everybody wants to be treated fairly. Everybody wants what other folks have. Mr. Linder there at the top, that's in Spring Creek. See in the red box there. Just across the creek, down at the bottom, Mr. James Hennessy. He's in the room with us tonight. Well, Mr. Linder wants what Mr. Hennessy enjoys. I would have to imagine that Mr. Hennessy is not sitting there thinking that he's harming the environment. And so if he's able to live at peace with the environment, why can't Mr. Linder do the exact same thing? Why can't those rules be the same for everybody? Sir, if you know a way to make sure that he can live in peace like you do, no, sir, it's my time to talk. Thank you.
Please don't address the audience, because they can't respond.
Absolutely. If you'll... This right here, Boris, this is Boris's son, Alexei. This is at Shell Point. He wants what Miss Damon has. Miss Damon is able to live with her home surrounded on 3 sides by the wetlands, very close proximity to the water. She has a septic tank on her property. We heard from her husband tonight that the Boy Scouts can't swim and can't go out. His wife on her property has a septic tank. I'm not saying that she's causing that.
You know, I think I'd like to just make a comment. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to encourage you to avoid personalities in these discussions.
These are not personal attacks. These are facts. These are facts. Everything I'm showing is a matter of public record, and everything is a matter of facts. Everyone is welcome to their opinion. I'm working on my opinion as well.
Just wrap it up so you can't go on.
Don't wrap it up.
Next one, Mr. Weslowski. He's here tonight. He's trying to build a house on a pond.
No, he's not. He's a realtor trying to flip a piece of property. We're not going to do this.
Doesn't matter.
That's enough.
You own your property. He owns his property.
Trying to flip a piece of property, swampland.
The bottom photo there is our own Commissioner Kessler, who owns a piece of property on a pond, and it's surrounded by wetlands all the way around. All Mr. Weslowski wants is to be able to enjoy what Commissioner Kessler has. Let's ease through these. Next one, Katie. Mr. Hennessy, top picture is in '04. There was no house there. Bottom picture is in '07. There's a house there now.
Get him out of here. Get him out. Take him out. Took it down to build a house that was up on pilings. Mr. Lovell sold us that property. We lived in his house.
My point, sir, I'm not...
We took it down to build a new house in the same... Any more outbursts, and you're going to be asked to leave also, please. Please contain yourself.
Please allow him to stay. Please allow him to stay.
No. You can come back when this issue's over.
And I'm speaking to the board here. I'm not saying that any of these folks that I'm using as an example have done anything wrong. Please hear that well. I'm not saying. I'm assuming that everything is properly permitted or properly exempt. I'm absolutely not saying you've done anything wrong. My point in using these examples is you've been able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. You've been able to enjoy your property and use it as you see fit. And that's all these other folks are asking. They're asking for the exact same thing that you have. Katie, if you'll take the next one there. 07, this is Miss Damon's property. Go ahead, next one. If you look at the top there, look at the beach erosion that's on the outside of her property line. Look at 2013, how nice that ground is there with the seawall. And you know, if some wetlands have been filled in, I don't know. And if they have, maybe they've been properly permitted. Maybe everything was done legal. But what we're saying is Mr. Bayevsky, he wants to be able to build on his property in the same neighborhood. We're all only asking for the same courtesy. Next photo there. Commissioner Kessler's property in '07 and the bottom at 2010. Mr. Weslowski alluded to this. There's been some construction there. Again, I'm not saying anything was done wrong. I'm just pointing out that there are people in this county that have been able to use their property as they see fit. Katie, the next one, and this is the last one. Here's some wetlands properties currently for sale that's in the wetlands. It's got a nearly $1 million price tag. Commissioner Kessler owns this property. So we keep hearing about commissioners that benefit from the wetlands and put money in their pocket. Well, you're right, and here's one of these examples of it. Mr. Lambeau likes to say that this issue is about the goose that laid the golden egg. Well, I'm going to agree with you, sir. I think you're right. But what we're not telling people is you and your friends want to control the goose and the gold, and you don't want anyone else to have the goose, and I think that's unfair. And this goes beyond a wetlands issue. This is not a wetlands issue. This is a matter. This is you guys are setting this thing up as the government against the people. This is not the government against the people. You've got 4 commissioners here that's trying to to restore property rights, trying to allow people to do exactly what you've been able to do, use your property. What this is a group of people against the other citizens of this county. I hope the citizens of this county will see this and realize that this is an attack on their freedom, this is an attack on their rights, and everyone's got to vote their own conscience. If they want to sign the petition, sign the petition. But I guarantee you, if this group is successful at taking away property rights now, this is not their last stop. Thank you.
Basically, all I hear is that we're going to destroy the wetlands and whatever. We're not even talking about the wetlands. We're talking about a setback. We're talking about a 25 or a 75-foot setback. If we add 40 feet, that's the distance from this wall to that wall. If we add 40 feet, all of a sudden, does that become a perfect setback? Probably not. Is a 25-foot setback a great setback? Probably not. But it's what the state has determined that is reasonable to protect the wetlands. So we're not going into the wetlands. We're not destroying the wetlands. We're not building in the wetlands like a particular person who spoke earlier tonight, pushed dirt in the wetlands, built his restaurant over the wetlands. In high tide, the water comes under his building. But all of a sudden, he got religion. I don't know. Does it make a difference whether it's a rule or a regulation? I don't know. But the person just spoke tonight about whatever. But and you wouldn't want to know the rest of that story, and it probably will show up at some point in time. We just heard about beach closings. Beach closings. That has nothing to do with people. It has nothing to do with people. They do not test for people pollution on beach closings. It's for warm-blooded animals. The testing for beach closings is a testing for warm-blooded animals. It's not a testing for human waste.
It's true, people are not warm-blooded animals.
So basically speaking, the idea that the beach closings is because of something to do with people is just erroneous. It's not correct. It's warm-blooded. We hear about the degradation of the springs and how nitrogen affects the springs. When I first came on the board, I showed that out of 100 bottles of water and 1/2 of one bottle, Wakulla County is responsible for 0.7% of the nitrogen that goes into the springs. We do hear about water withdrawal. I voted against having a water bottling company, and I will continue to do so. But the people in Wakulla are not pulling the water out of the springs. It's the people in the aquifer that are from South Georgia, South Carolina, all the way over to Alabama, who are sucking the water out of the aquifer. It is not the people in Wakulla County that's doing that. Somebody, let's see. Somebody mentioned about our budget tonight and how that whatever. I believe in the kids in this county. The kids in this, most of the people in here tonight are not really important in this county as the children of this county. The children of this county are the future of this county. It's the kids, it's making a place for the kids to stay out of trouble. It's providing recreation. We're going to be gone. Most of us in here will be gone shortly, and some of us earlier than that. But what we can do for our kids and provide them with an opportunity to live here at a reasonable cost. So basically, it just we just hear about the wetlands. It's the setback we're talking about. It's the setback. And does 25 feet or 75 feet, is one good and one bad? Who has the science that's 25 feet's all wrong, and who has the science that 75 feet's all good? I was in the audience when the Wetlands Committee first began quite a while ago, and I spoke at that meeting. I said, you have no balance on your committee. And that was sure enough. The committee shoved the wetlands ordinance down the people of Wakulla County's throat. You shoved it, and you shoved it, and you shoved it.
And now you're getting there's no balance in this. You're getting the repercussions of it. The people have asked us to take it back, and that's basically what we're going to do. It's just a challenge to see which way the people want us to do. So that's mine.
Let's vote on it.
I think I've made my...
Hey.
Please,
under order, please.
Come on, guys. I've made my position clear several times. I don't feel compelled to repeat it. Richard?
Well, I've made my position several times clear too, but I just want to say again, for me, this is a freedom, this is a basic freedom, this is a property rights issue. I believe if someone owns property and they want to use their property, they should be able to use every bit of the property that they have, and I'm going to vote for this. I'm going to vote to do everything I can to restore the freedoms that some of the very people out here took away a few years ago. I thank Commissioner Thomas for outlining this PowerPoint together. This is information that citizens at home and citizens of the community needed to know, that some of the same citizens that are out there collecting petitions, some of the same citizens live on the wetlands, and they've got theirs, and they don't want anybody else to have theirs. And I'm going to always fight for freedom, and I believe that people should be allowed to use their property. It's been said many times through this and they hope they're repeated enough times, they try to say that the golden goose is our wetlands. It's not. The golden goose is property rights in our county. That's the golden goose that we're trying to hold on to. Just as Boris said earlier, that's the one thing that separates our nation from many nations around the world, is that we have the ability to own property, to use property, the freedom to have that property. And there's many in here tonight that are wanting to take that freedom away from people, and I'm going to vote to give that freedom back. I believe if someone owns property, they want to use property, they should be allowed to decide for themselves what they should do on their property, not an environmental activist group.
Dr. Kessler?
Thank you. First, I'd like to enter into the record a letter that we all received from a Kathy Hallowell, and she wrote a letter trying to convince the commissioners not to do away with the local protections. And she said it's an important economic decision for Wakulla County, and it's not pro-business to degrade that which brings people here in the first place. And she went on in her letter to say that she never heard anyone say they can't wait to drive down 319 to get to the McDonald's or the Great Winn-Dixie we have here. And she makes a defense for the protection of the wetlands. And when we say protection of the wetlands, that includes the buffer area. The wetlands will be degraded the closer we, humans, get to the wetlands. We will degrade it. That's what happens. And that's why the science says the larger that buffer, the better it is for the health of the wetlands. And yes, I know I'm speaking to a parent mindset that's going to vote 4-1, but that's a shame. It's a shame we didn't have a workshop after this was decided to move forward in the way it was now being brought forward. We never had the opportunity to have a workshop. And to think that wetlands ordinances were forced down the throats of the people of Wakulla County, it's a 5-0 vote of the Board of County Commissioners. 5-0. Not 4-1. 5-0. The first wetlands ordinance came into effect because a group of not environmental activists, but a group that included a representative from St. Joe, a group that included a large developer in our county, a group that included a farmer, a group that included an engineer whose work is predicated on growth and building, and etc. It was overly weighted for business, and they saw the wisdom of having these buffers and supporting these buffers. So we go through decades seemingly gaining an understanding of the value of the wetland buffer, and now We're seemingly ignoring all of that. You know, the comp plan is in the 1980s. Wetlands are in it. This didn't just get put in there by a group of environmental activists, if that's what you think all of the people who want to protect the wetlands are. It's everyone. It's not Democrats, it's not Republicans, it's not conservatives, and it's not liberals. It's everyone. And you will find out that the majority of the citizens of this county want to protect those buffers, and they want the local control. They don't want Big Brother minding their store. They want local control. And as far as anyone, and I can speak for the steering committee of the Wakulla Wetlands Alliance because I'm on that steering committee, no one's in this to make a profit. I mean, yes, it was put on the map, and I totally disagree. And I don't care how much you want to put stuff of mine on the map. When you're taking private citizens and you're pointing them out by name, I think that's shameful. But yes, I have property. And it's wetlands. And I'm for these buffers. Does that look like I'm trying to make money off of the wetlands? I'm for the 75-foot buffer. I'm for everything it represents. And to imply that anything was done on my properties that was, as one citizen may have implied, out of the reach or out of the law, turns out on the property on Levy Bay, that pond is exempt from the wetlands. We constructed wetlands ordinances in our county specifically not to have a taking, to avoid taking at almost all costs, to allow people to build, to use their land. How many people have been negatively impacted? Someone just pointed out, one of the citizens spoke about his property, and a commissioner said about that's all he wants to do is build on his land. Well, he can. Turns out he doesn't want to put the house where the house has to be, according to the wetlands ordinance. So let's change it so he can move it closer to the water. You know, if we didn't know about smoking and we kept on smoking, we can say, all right, we don't know. But we know about smoking, we smoke, and shame on us. Because we know it hurts us, at least the majority of people. Some people get away with it, maybe it's genetic. But most people end up getting cancer. That's what happens. All those rats that they were testing in the 1950s and 60s, they all got cancer. They exposed them to smoke, they got cancer. And the science is there. And the science is there to show the value of the buffers. The larger the buffer, the healthier the wetlands. Because the buffers filter. They filter. And it's pervious surface that filters. And when you allow those buffers to become less and the wetlands to become more harmed, you degrade the wetlands. And that affects anyone that likes to fish. And that affects anyone that likes to bird watch. And that affects anyone that likes to go to our restaurants and have seafood. And I can go on and on. It affects me. And so this is bad for the citizens of Wakulla County. It's bad for the critters of Wakulla County. It's bad for the environment. It's bad for our economy. I mean, why are we doing this? And on top of that, why are we rushing to do this when there's a petition drive going on and citizens are out there wanting to vote on the issue? Why create another problem on top of a perceived problem, if there is one? Later in this meeting, I have a couple of amendments that I'm proposing to the current wetlands ordinance. Maybe they'll get some traction and maybe they'll resolve some issues. But our ordinances are good ordinances. And I would urge the board, if nothing else, to put off this vote, to not proceed down this path until the board knows where the citizens of this county are with relation to their desire on local protections. Thank you.
I think the comp plan was actually 95, Howard.
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
I think the zoning went into effect in the 80s, but I think the comp plan was 95.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Okay, thank you. Louis, tell me what, as far as karst features, I don't want to put you on the spot. I looked it up. It's in the comp plan. It's not in the code. What setbacks from karst features are going to remain that are not being addressed? I know it's like 300 foot from a first magnitude spring. It's 100 foot from something with a direct connection to the aquifer. Is that?
Yeah, it's a larger setback for karst features. I believe it's 100 feet.
Yeah, and those are buffer zones around karst features that are in contact with the have a direct connection to the groundwater.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, is there any more discussion?
I'm ready to vote on this.
Okay. Everybody ready? All for the motion?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-1. All right, we're going to take about 10 minutes. Staff can get them something to eat because we're on item 1, and we got a ways to go. Thank you. Finish up with item 1. Let's move on to item 2, Louis.
My mouth full.
Yes, Commissioners, this is for transmittal of a comprehensive plan text amendment establishing the Crawfordville Town Center 1 and Crawfordville Town Center 2 future land use designations. These are designations that were recommended in the Crawfordville Town Plan, and what we'd be doing is establishing these designations. We would later come back to you and actually apply them to the specific areas of the map, although they are conceptually located on the Crawfordville Town Plan. We would come back to you at a later time for that.
So at this point, this is just we're just looking at the text and not any specific parcels.
That's correct, yes.
I
just the
have,
text.
Louis, I have one question on page 2 of the agenda item.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the second paragraph down, it says, based on the concept drawings and in order to encourage development within town centers, the proposed amendment recommends higher FARs than recommended in the town plan. It says, we have proposed a FAR of 1.0 for Town Center 1 and 1.5 for Town Center 2, but when you look up above that, it says the FAR is 1. Is that, which one of those is right, the 1.5 or the 1 for Town Center 2?
For Town Center 1, it should be 1,
Okay.
and for Town Center 2, it should be 1.5. The paragraph above is what is the actual language in the town plan.
Under analysis, then, it should say Town Center 1 would FAR of 1, even though it says .75.
That's right.
So there is a typo in the analysis of it.
Well, I guess it's we gave you the language there of the town plan, but yeah, I guess for clarification, Town Center 1 will be a floor area ratio of 1, and Town Center 2 will be a floor area ratio of 1.5.
Okay, thank you.
And again, if you have any questions on this, the Planning Commission did recommend unanimously in favor of this, so we're recommending option 1 for transmittal.
Okay, is there any motion on this?
Yep. We get to it. Option number 1.
1, okay, good enough.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Number 2, citizens, Mr. Lambu. Bob, you're next.
Thank you. I may be a little off the subject. I noticed one of you commissioners, Mr. Thomas, takes a very long time talking. I only had 1 minute. I would like to challenge you, Mr. Thomas, to give me as many times at a workshop or a neutral place where we both could talk for the same time on the subject. Would you do that for me?
Let's go to lunch.
No, not lunch, where the public could hear it. How dare you?
We got to stay on subject here.
Bob?
My name's Bob Danzy, and maybe I'm the one changing the subject, but I want to talk about the issue at hand. I just want to show my support for it, and I'll leave it at that. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Easy as number 1.
Thank you. This is agenda item number 3. This agenda item requests board approval to conduct a public hearing and adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 15 of the Code, adding a new section for vacancy adjustments for solid waste services.
Motion to approve option 1.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? Any citizens? Katie? Any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have the consent agenda. Mr. Pat has been waiting patiently for this, I think.
You want to approve that?
Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve with the changes as pulled.
A second.
Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
All right,
Not
you guys
bad.
can go. Thank you very much. All right, David, item 6, consent.
Excuse me. Item 6, this agenda item requests board approval of the proposed resolution appointing members to the 1 cent sales tax committee. The Wakulla County 1 cent sales tax committee was established by resolution to advise and make recommendations to the BoCC with respect to use of the 1 cent sales tax. There are 7 members currently, as per the ordinance. 1 member is appointed by the Wakulla County Sheriff, the tax collector, property appraiser, supervisor of elections, clerk of court, Chamber of Commerce president, and Wakulla Senior Citizens Director.
Move to approve the proposed resolution appointing members to the 1 cent sales tax committee.
I second the motion.
How did you pull it?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, so we have 4 pots of money that come out of the 1 cent sales tax. There's a transportation portion, that's 60%. There's a public facilities portion, which is 20%. There's a public safety portion, which is 15%. And we have a Parks and Rec portion at 5%. It seems to me that, let me see if I can go back and go down to the membership of that committee. I think we need to really think about why that membership is there and why those people are on it, and maybe think about revamping that whole membership. So we have money going to public safety, and it's very appropriate that we have the Wakulla County Sheriff on it. And we have money going to public facilities, and I don't know that anyone else on there as far as public. I'd like to see the county administrator be on there someplace, because I think public facilities in our county, we should have some representation of the board on that.
Let me, if I could, this committee, my understanding, they decide whether or not to change the allocation, not specific projects, right? So in other words, this committee may say, we'd rather spend 50% on transportation and give the extra 10% to Parks and Rec. Isn't that what this committee is supposed to do?
So, and even if they did it that way, it's still based on why do they want to change those percentages, because there is some need to flow more money in one of the other pots. And so what I'm saying is that however this came to be, it looks, you know, there's no Parks and Rec on there, I don't think. Why isn't Parks and Rec, they're getting money from this pot, why aren't they on there?
Well, I want to...
Public Works isn't on there for transportation.
The only thing, this is an oversight, really it's more of a oversight committee than anything else, ensuring that the sales tax is being properly implemented.
And I thought when it was implemented, this 1 cent sales tax, this committee was supposed to look at the distribution of it, not necessarily...
They're to ensure that the projects that were done are divvied up, they were done properly based upon that percentage, as far as the, you know, making sure that the monies that were spent, the 60% for roads was actually 60% of that projects were for roads.
So they're not supposed to rank which roads...
That's your guys and the voters to determine that.
Are they an audit committee then?
Well,
they're auditing the spending?
Ralph has got something to say about that.
Go ahead.
I served on that committee for 2 years prior to being elected, and I think paragraph 3, and there's a lot of latitude of what can be done, but it says a citizens advisory committee created herein shall annually review the use of the 1 cent sales tax and make recommendations to the board of county commissioners regarding the same. So the recommendation could effectively be anything. I mean, some things that we saw when I served on it is You know, there was examples of where money was spent outside of one area and used in a different area. And as we looked at those things, we recommended that that money be put back in the area to maintain the percentages.
Did you ever talk about the way the percentages are split up?
Every year, we talked about it. We never made a recommendation to change.
That
but-
answers my question.
Yeah,
But you
and-
did,
and-
okay.
Absolutely.
I have a question. Basically, the primary focus that I have is on the rec department, the kids of the county, and what we're doing for them and what we're not. We can build roads and whatever, and we can always find a way to spend our money, and we leave, the most important part of our county is getting the least part of our budget. At what point do we have an input on that? At what point can I say, hey, I would like to see this percentage here changed to that percentage?
My understanding is that you guys could vote on that by resolution and change the resolution
Correct. At any time?
at any time.
Paragraph 2, these percentages may be amended from time to time by further resolution of the board adopted at duly advertised public meetings.
And that's what I thought this
Okay.
committee was supposed to do, is look and say, we think we should spend more on parks and rec and less on roads.
They could, that could be part of it, but they're also, the primary is oversight to make sure, as Commissioner Thomas was saying, that the money's being properly spent in the proper areas.
And regarding the roads, the time that I was there, most of that money was spent early on when this was adopted, and so you know, a large portion of that money was paying debt service, and so it wasn't easy to just carve that section off and say we're going to put it to Parks and Rec instead of roads.
Last thing I would think is this committee would be in charge of ranking which road gets paved in front of the other one.
We didn't get into any specifics, only the percentages, and if we saw something that was outside of the category.
If we have a capital improvement plan, long-term capital improvement plan, that I thought was supposed to tell us what we wanted to spend this money on.
Well, it does.
Okay. Again, I was just thinking it was...
Yeah, it does, and
And I agree with Jerry. I think we should maybe look at spending more money on parks.
well, but as Commissioner Thomas said, though, is your 60% of your money is pretty much locked into really more than that. You've got not only in them roads, we've got that leveraged out, but also in your facilities, the bulk of that is leveraged out with the courthouse.
But when if the voters vote to renew the 1-cent sales tax, that would be an excellent time to look at it.
That's exactly right. That's some time to look at it, and like I say, it's maybe a stage thing, but until FY 18-19, they're really, until those loans come off the books, that's when the real shuffling could happen.
I'll re-ask this question again. At what point and any time can I make a recommendation that the rec department gets more money?
You can do that at any time.
Okay. I don't have to wait till the 1%.
You do not have to wait for that. You could do it the next meeting or
Very good.
whenever
Like
you have.
David said, if they've already committed the money to pay for
Yeah.
the loan for roads...
Pretty
we
much,
just
that's the
pay-
problem right now, is your percentages are fairly locked due to the fact of having already spent those dollars, and we're paying those dollars back now.
But, okay, they're locked until when?
The biggest one is the roads, is, it will start going out in FY 16, in 2015-16 is when the roads will start, that number will start getting down low enough to where you could do something.
If you and I are still here, Jerry, we can have input on it. Howard, go
But the
ahead.
problem is you know, also in facilities, you're paying for the courthouse, which is a big.
And in public safety, that money is typically used to buy sheriff cars
Right,
and ambulances.
The only thing I can see to pull anything from would be roads, but Howard's been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm glad at least there was some discussion on this that would have just sort of sailed on through. You know, I'm thinking that before we appoint the people, this membership that's here, I personally think that there needs to be more citizen representation on it, that there needs to be representation on it, that there needs to be BoCC representation by our administrator or his designee. And I'd like to see if we can maybe have a workshop and look at a new, fresh face for this committee, and then appoint members.
Would we need to change the resolution? I mean, I get Howard's point. Every constitutional officer is represented on here except the Board of County Commissioners. There's no representative from the board.
Can we make that change tonight? Can we then how do I make
Just
the
add
motion?
somebody from the county administrator to it, Howard?
I mean, you're not going to have names to attach to those positions tonight, because we don't know what categories you are, we don't know who would fill those categories, but if you want to change and instead having the tax collector, the property appraiser, supervisor of elections, et cetera, appoint positions and instead have different categories, or...
I think what we just want to do is just add a representative from the board, just like all the other
I agree
constituents
with
have.
I agree with that. How do we do that tonight?
add a board appointee.
Amend your motion.
And they meet at like 7 o'clock at night, right, David?
Nope.
Okay.
Can I
Howard,
make
do
that
you wanna-
motion?
You want to make the motion and then add David as a representative from the board? on
I think
the
that's a start, and maybe in the future we can come back and have a workshop on it and really
Okay.
hammer out some more things. So I would make that amended
committee? What
motion.
year term would this one be? Because some of them are different year terms. Probably need to go ahead and specify.
Probably a 4-year.
4-year, Howard? You
Yes, that's
okay.
fine.
Is there a second on that?
I second it.
Okay.
Well, I think he's amended my first, so I'll...
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
That's right, yeah, you're right.
But
Sorry.
I certainly
Okay,
accept that.
you'll accept that?
Yeah, I'm not
Who would-
opposed to, I will say that as far as a board representative, we get the final vote. and
I
so-
understand,
But I'm not opposed to
You know
that.
how things happen, though.
Yeah.
Here's the list we come up with.
Right.
Who was the second on it?
I will. No. Oh, Harden.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Evelyn.
Yeah.
Will you
Yeah,
voice that one?
yeah, I accept it.
I was saying Evelyn.
I thought you was...
I know what I'm saying for this.
Any more discussion? Good idea, Howard. All for the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Okay.
Item 8.
Item 8, request board approval of contracts for the Gulf Tourism and Seafood Promotional Grant, RFP 2013-06, Creative Marketing and Graphic Design Services to Media Design, and RFP 2013-7, Digital Media Advertising Services to Simple View Incorporated. And I do not see David or any representative from the TDC here, but this is asking for that approval. These are the...
Ralph's here.
Huh?
Ralph's
Ralph,
here.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve option 1.
I second.
Okay, go ahead and say it.
Okay, Howard, you want to talk about it?
I just have some questions.
Okay.
So what is actually being spent when we vote on this, and what projects are being done? I'm just,
Very good. And all this money comes from the $500,000 that we received from the Restore grant. And this board approved moving forward with these things. So basically, we have 2 contracts here. One, the smaller one for $35,000 is basically going to give us graphic design. That information will be used to create flyers, rack cards. Basically, we'll take the design, and we still have to go out and do the printing, do the distribution. So that it's more data that could be used, in different areas. The other, the larger one, we had approved a contract initially of, I believe it was $224,000 or $225,000. And I'm sorry, not approved, but that was what the original bid was, and they were the apparent winner to that bid. We went back to them and asked them if we could back part of that money out, and where are we at now? 140, 127, somewhere in there. Our idea behind that is we wanted to take an additional RFP out to have a destination management system. We think it's good to have this advertising that we're going to have out there, and we're going to direct people to our website, but we've really got kind of an outdated website. We've got no ability to capture that data, to interact with people, and a website can be a billboard where someone just sees, or it can be more interactive. And so we got them to agree to back that money out, and we went out with a separate RFP, which will come back at another date. For those services. But with the second one, it's going to be actual media buys, Google AdWords. It's going to be driving traffic, to our website. So it's going to be stretched out through the grant period.
Okay, so basically we're going to have roughly $340,000 left out of the $500,000 moving forward.
I think we've only received $400,000 of it up front,
Okay.
and we're having to do quarterly reports, and then we'll get the final 100. But I think you're right after these 2 grants.
Okay, any more discussion?
I just want to say, I think part of this also was a website, was the $90,000 website, wasn't it?
Right, and that'll come back. That has not been approved. We've gone out for RFP, And we've selected a parent high bidder, or not high bidder, but
Low bidder.
actually it was middle. It was the middle of the three.
Yeah.
You know.
Just government, but we're not that bad.
Yeah, exactly. But that'll come back before this board for final approval.
Okay, any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Tab number 9, this agenda item requests board approval of the proposed resolution appointing and reappointing members and alternate members to the Animal Control Appeals Board. There's 2 seats that are up. One of the seats is a public health expert as well as a lay member, and Scott McDermott will not be performing as the role of the public health expertise person. Steve Pygott has taken his place, and Deborah Johnson will be the alternate. The lay member is Sherry Calloway, and Dale Twist will be the alternate. That was a change and the reason for it to be pulled.
Motion to approve.
Second.
More discussion, any citizens? All for the motion?
Aye.
Ivanhoe, you're free to go now, too.
Thank you, Ivanhoe.
This is the road closure for Veterans Day Parade. Can I hear a motion?
That was already on
That was
consent.
on consent.
We already did, that was under consent.
Me.
We got it. That's planning and zoning now.
You drinking too much water?
They have to look at this stupid computer and I got wheel.
It happens.
Yes.
Okay. Ready? Tab 10. Yes, 10.
This is a quasi-judicial item. In accordance with Section 24.01 of the County Code, each commission member needs to disclose any contact you may have received from interested parties or their representatives or lobbyists concerning this application, which is the rezoning of Magnolia Gardens. Mr. Thomas?
Various emails through the county. Terry Kramer, we have spoke, and best of my knowledge, I believe that's it.
Same as Ralph.
Same as Jerry and Ralph.
I've gotten various emails.
Gotten emails and petitions and conversations with the Kramers.
Anyone who is going to provide any testimony regarding this item, please stand up to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Commissioners,
Sorry.
oh, go ahead. This is the first of 2 hearings that you'll have on this, so you won't be voting to approve or deny it. This will just be to open the item and take public comment. This is the application to rezone the Magnolia Gardens subdivision from RMH1 to R1. This came as board direction because we determined that the ordinance special zoning restrictions under Ordinance 9313 were inconsistent with state law. We received a petition which is attached to this item from many of the homeowners who were requesting that it be rezoned to a district that does not allow mobile homes. Page 2, attachment 4 includes the differences in the zoning. Basically, the proposed zoning would not allow mobile homes in the district.
I think we're all familiar with this. Is there a motion on this one?
I make a motion to approve.
Second motion.
Okay. Mr. Kramer? Y'all both gonna pass? Okay.
That's a good
Thank
thing.
For clarification, this is just to open the publip hearing and
Correct.
consider adoption.
The motion, as I understand it, was to conduct the second of 3 public hearings. Wait, am I on the wrong one again?
You're on the wrong one. Number
Well,
10.
it is a second public hearing,
You're right.
Yeah, option 1.
counting the planning commission, so
His motion was for option 1. How about that?
that's correct.
Okay. Is there any more discussion?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead,
I have
Howard.
some questions. Were there any correspondence or of opposition to this?
No, there were none.
And how many certified mailings went out?
631. Oh, 631.
And I was confronted by a citizen, I'm not gonna call her name out, Sybil, but, that why is the county paying for this rezoning? The reason the county's paying for this rezoning because the county messed up several years ago and created a zoning category that was basically illegal. So we're correcting this mistake that was done years ago. That's why it's being done at no cost to the residents.
I don't know if it was illegal, it was in conflict with other things, so let's just soften that a little bit.
Okay. It was incorrect. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. Unenforceable, how about that?
Did we just vote on this?
The next item is a request application for a variance from the Walkers. This is also a quasi-judicial item. Therefore, in accordance with county code, you need to disclose any ex parte communications you may have received. Commissioner Thomas?
I have spoken to Mr. Walker.
Same.
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 I don't think I have. I don't know if I have.
Okay.
I don't know.
If there is anyone here who is going to speak on this item, please stand up to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Commissioners, this is a variance request to the wetland buffer setbacks. This is for a .27 acre parcel. This subdivision was platted in 1954 well before the wetland buffer requirements. We've also noted in our report this is a cul-de-sac lot, and it does narrow as you move away from the water, and therefore it does create a hardship there. Staff is recommending approval of this with conditions, which is option 2. The Planning Commission did consider this item on October 14th and did vote unanimously to also recommend approval with conditions. So the recommendation is for option 2.
I make a motion to approve.
Second motion.
Let's see, option 2,
You made your motion was option 2, right?
Yes.
Okay.
with the recommendations being the difference. Okay.
Can you explain to us what the modification is from the Planning Commission?
There's not a modification from the Planning Commission. Option 2 is standard conditions that we've been attaching to all variances, which requires an expiration date for one. And the other condition is that the developer will use best management practices for protection of the wetlands.
Bob Danzy?
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Bob Danzy. I'll make this short and sweet. This is a perfect example of if we didn't have ordinance, possibly we wouldn't be here. This gentleman may be able to go ahead and move forward with what he intended to do without even asking for a variance from the state. So we're not always trying to get in the wetlands, not even always trying to get inside that 25 foot. I bet there's room if we didn't have our ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Claude Walker?
Appropriate night for me to bring this before you, isn't it? I'm glad I waited a while.
Less appropriate to do it earlier in the meeting, though.
I'm glad a lot of people cleared out of here, or I may get my hair cut shorter than it is. As you can see from my drawing there, that this ordinance pretty much renders our lot unbuildable unless you build a postage stamp size footprint, because with the front, sides, and then with a 75-foot setback from the water, we would basically render this lot unbuildable and unusable. You know, really the law should have had some kind of exception in it, and I'll just talk as a lawyer because I'm a real estate lawyer. There should have been some way to accept out lots which were platted prior to 2010 when this ordinance was put into effect, because when you implement this type of law, you've now forced me to come before you to ask for a variance, and if I can't get a variance, then I don't have too many other remedies available in law except for ask you to pay for my property, which I acquired prior to the time that you implemented this law. So I'd very much appreciate if you allow us to build a house in your community where we'd like to live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse
Mr. Lambu? Go ahead, Al, go ahead.
Have we spoken?
No, sir.
Because I didn't remember us speaking.
No, sir, I've not spoken to you on this issue.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Lambu?
Oh, yes, and I'm not going to speak in opposition to this, other than to say this shows you your wetland ordinance is working. I think there's something that he's talking about, the prior lights will come up later on if you all go along with Dr. Kessler's proposals. Again, I would sure like to publicly debate you on the things. I dare you.
You live in my district?
All right, let's,
Okay,
please, let's not do that. All right, any more
I
discussion?
just want to make a comment that I think, you know, the ordinance did not render the lot unusable. We're going to be granting this ordinance. That was the process that was set up in there, and it could be made better. But this is this ordinance gave us a way to address these issues. And there are so many different lots out there and so many different conditions out there that some of this needs to come before us. Some of it needs to be straightened out in the ordinance, I think, and reduce the amount of people coming before us.
Not to drag this out too much.
Okay.
But if he had to get closer than 35 feet to build on his property, there is no variance procedure. And
that's the problem.
another point is, this gentleman, if he wanted to borrow money to buy this lot, what bank in their right mind is going to rely on a politician to approve a variance? The bank would look at it and say, we got to assume worst case scenario, you can't build on it. And they could say, well, I could get a variance. Well, you got to go before a bunch of politicians. But anyway, we have enough. We've talked about wetlands enough for now.
No, we are in front of a bunch of bankers like they were doing in 2000 and whatever.
You know what I'm saying? A bank
Yeah,
is,
I
you know,
sure.
they have to assume worst case. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Welcome to Wakulla County.
Thank you, sir. We'll be looking forward to your tax bill.
Yes, definitely.
All right, David?
Louis got one last item.
Yeah, item 12 is this is a request to adopt the revised public school facilities element and revised...
Motion to adopt.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Katie and cards? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Tab 13, the agenda item requests board approval resolution amending the building fee schedule per 8.28-2 Wakulla County Land Development Code. This agenda item comes to you as per a request by the board to bring forth, number one, a fee schedule that will actually reduce fees for some of the fees where applicable, so in order for us to burn down some of the fund balance that we have, as well as to adjust fees to where they were more fairly distributed between commercial and residential. The fee study that we had done realized any fees that are that as we go through this study, all fees are based upon the time that it takes, based upon the subject property, whether it's commercial or residential, and we have to have that math behind it in order to defend that. So therefore, we had a fee study done, and Mr. James Melvin here is here to answer any questions. He's our building official, but he worked diligently with the fee study guy as well as provided and did much of the work himself. So therefore, we present this to you guys to approve the new fee study. We think it will help stimulate our economy to a degree by lowering the building fees, as well as we've had numerous contractors already sign off on this. We feel like it's been vetted with our contractors and folks pretty good, so we're wanting to move forward with this.
Make a motion, we approve the proposed resolution setting forth the new building department fees and approval to adjust the fees on an annual basis in accordance with the customer price index.
Second. I really wish I could take credit for this, but Howard actually brought this up at a budget meeting, how we have $700-something thousand in our reserve in the building department we can't use for anything but the building department. And I think it was a good suggestion to try to lower fees, because once the construction comes back, the budget can be leveled off, and that's what that reserve is there for. Go ahead, whoever wants to talk.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we have a guarantee that we'll be watching this closely and in a manner that's set up routinely, so that we don't get to a point of burning off too much, because our building department works off of its fees and needs a reserve and needs money for improvements.
Trust me, we will carefully watch that. We'll carefully do that. Don't worry about that one.
I really like this. I think this is good. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Good night, James.
5-0. He got all dressed up, nowhere to go.
His prom date didn't show up.
All right, Dave. Number 14.
Agenda item number 14. This agenda item provides a list of code enforcement liens eligible to be foreclosed and request authorization for the county attorney's office to proceed with foreclosure actions. Do I have a motion?
I'm not going to pass the gavel to make a motion. Wish somebody would make one, but I'm not.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. Is your motion items
I have to look it
1
up.
and 3?
I have to look it up. I have to get there. I'm not getting there too quickly. One second.
They recommended 1 and 3, Howard.
Okay, I messed up. I'll be there in a second. Every time it reduces the size. Okay. Just want to make sure. Yes, options 1 and 3.
Okay, is there a second on that motion? Tab 14. Huh? Is there a second? All right, motion dies for lack of second. Next item.
Item number 15. Request board approval to purchase a Godwin bypass pump from...
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Katie, any cards? Any discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Request board approval, board ratification of the fuel purchase payable.
I make a motion to
Oil
approve.
Company.
Second.
Evan, did you get the second? I got 2 people. All right, good. Got all bases covered. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Pass.
This agenda item requests board approval of change order number 2 to C.W. Roberts in the amount of $14,000.
Make a motion to approve.
I second the motion.
Katie, you got any cards on any of these items we're talking about? No. All right. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item number 21, this agenda item requests board approval to authorize the chairman and clerk to execute line of credit documents prepared by Neighbors, Giblin, and Nickerson on October 7th, 2013. The board approved opening a line of credit at Ameris Bank for the sole purpose of funding future emergency or disaster relief efforts that cannot be internally funded through cash reserves.
Make a motion, we approve the opening of a line of credit with Ameris Bank, authorize the chairman and clerk to sign the attached documents, and approve the budget amendment for the attorney fees.
Is there a second on this item? Okay. Motion dies for lack of second. Next item. Nobody was going to second it.
Dr. Kessler?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Bill Anderson?
I don't have an opinion one way or the other whether you ought to approve it or not, but I was at the previous board meeting where this was discussed, and there was no mention of whether there was a fee involved. I've done a lot of these agreements, and there's usually always a fee for having the line available or a compensating balance requirement. And when you all consider this issue, and for the public to know, I'd like to know if there is a fee, just so you all know when you vote on it what it is, since it's going to come out of the budget and the taxpayer dollars.
No fee is my understanding.
Well, my understanding is that they're, and to be transparent, is that the bank was willing to waive all fees, and then the paperwork from the bank was not to the satisfaction of the county, and the county then had to put work in order to have documents that the county could recommend. That's my understanding, and that there's a...
My
There's
understanding...
no ongoing fees.
The bank
from Ameris
was not
Bank.
happy with the documents from the county that we approved that night when we approved this item, correct?
The bank was, originally had signed off on those documents.
The ones we approved that night?
Yep, and then they sent a whole new set of different documents with different terms that then had to be reconciled with the documents you all had approved. And so, yes, it became a much greater work effort on our part. But on the specific issue, I don't believe there is an ongoing fee. Now, the county does have their accounts at this bank, so perhaps that offsets that. David?
I want to speak on this.
Go ahead, yeah.
Well, I made a motion for this and because I believe that we need it. You know, this is something, we're not fixing to run out right now and borrow $2 million or nothing, but if we have a heavy storm that comes in there and hits our county that's greater than what we can handle with the reserves we had on hand, this is just something else to have in the toolkit to meet those needs until we can be reimbursed by FEMA. I hope we never have to use it, but it would be there in the event that something happened, and we could, and as I also understood it, we wouldn't be able to do anything without bringing it back before the board, and the board itself would have to vote for the action. But this is, I think this is good. I think this is a good policy. I think this gives us even more of an assurance that we would be able to handle an emergency that did arise, and I'm for it.
Okay, any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. All right, Dr. Kessler, is it, David, we got Dr. Kessler's next, right?
I think so.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, your time's up. Next item.
Right. Don't throw me out of the room. So this item requests the board approval to direct staff to review the Wakulla County Wetlands Protection Ordinance 10-16 and draft an amendment that would apply to parcels of land platted prior to 1995. The board had voted to eliminate the wetland protections, and there was some differences of opinion concerning how the land adjoining, I think I'm on still the same one, seawalls was regulated in our present and enforced wetlands protection ordinance. Some opine that the grass cutting and land abutting a seawall is a violation of our existing wetlands ordinances, and other opinions differ with that interpretation. But if the land abutting an existing seawall is considered upland, that is, the land has been dredged, it's been filled, a seawall has been put in place, it should be exempt from the wetland buffer requirements of our county wetlands ordinance. And so this, I think, is an easy issue to resolve and remove this area of difference as to interpretation and make it very clear that the wetlands ordinance does not apply to the seawalled properties, and that our land code would be in effect.
Let me just ask the attorney something before you make your motion. Howard's motion is going to be to advertise to hold a public hearing to amend the ordinance to change just one particular section. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Yes.
Which would be several meetings. And I know you're going to make your motion, but I'm strongly in favor. Let's address everything at one time rather than piecemeal. So, anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was hoping that this and the next one could be combined. So the motion would be to direct staff to review the Wakulla County Wetlands Protection Ordinance 1016 and draft an amendment that would apply to the land purchased prior to 1995 as directed in the modifications listed in the analysis section above, which was what we were just talking about. Yes.
The seawalls.
Yep.
Well, I have something I want to talk about on this. One thing is, Commissioner Kessler, you and the Wetlands Alliance have
Hold
been...
on for a second, Richard.
Go ahead.
I encourage, if you're not going to vote for this, don't second it. We can talk about it till we're blue in the face under discussion items.
All right.
But procedurally, is there a second on this motion? All right, motion fails for lack of second. Dr. Kessler, next item.
Okay.
But we can speak on it at discussion. in the
Absolutely.
discussion.
Talk
All
about
right.
whatever you want under discussion, as long as we're nice.
So this is another amendment that I'm proposing to the same ordinance, and that would allow the board, again, to try to arrive at a compromise solution that would address the area of possible inequality and at the same time preserve local protections of our wetlands as provided in our county's comprehensive plan and wetlands ordinance. Although there are provisions in our present wetlands ordinance that provide a mechanism for requesting a variance, there are still situations that could be more properly addressed by making some amendments to our existing ordinance. And if these changes resolve the issues that prompted the members of the BoCC to vote to eliminate our local wetlands protections, then maybe the local wetlands protections included in our comprehensive plan and wetlands ordinance can be preserved. So the proposed modification on this agenda item refers to parcels platted prior to 1995 would be subject to only the 35-foot segment of the 75-foot wetland buffer. They would not be subject to any of the present restrictions that presently apply to development in the second 40-foot buffer zone. So that's the
Just for
request.
clarification, that still wouldn't allow any variances inside that 35-foot, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Is that your motion?
Yes, to approve to direct staff to review Wakulla County Wetlands Protection Ordinance 1016 and draft an amendment that would apply to land purchased prior to 1995 as directed in the modifications listed in the analysis section of this agenda item.
Again, I'm certainly willing to talk about these, but I want to see it all done at one time. Then, is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second. Jerry?
Okay. My agenda item is basically, I would ask the county attorney to render an opinion that the referendum that is being talked about would not trigger county liability under the Burt-Harris Act. And down in the analysis, I'd like to change basically the opinion from the state attorney general. We'll scratch that and just ask for the county attorney to render the opinion.
Heather, we talked about this during our pre-meeting. Why don't you talk about this a little bit before we have a motion on it?
Sure. I mean, Burt-Harris Act is basically a heightened version of the state law on takings. Takings and Burt-Harris Act claims are all highly factual specific. Individual piece of property, when it was purchased, what it was purchased for. And so giving an opinion without those facts would be a pretty hollow opinion on my part. It'd be very difficult to do. It'd have to be so vague and so conditioned that it wouldn't probably be what you're looking for. What I can tell you is that if once the county removes the 75-foot buffers, if there's a gap in time and then they are put back in place, there is the potential for the county to face liability with either takings claims or Burt-Harris claims.
Does that answer?
That would be good. That answers what I
There's
need.
no motion.
Now we can scratch that one.
Okay. Next item, Jerry.
Let me get to that one. Basically, on the next one is we have some confusion. We hear about all these numbers and whatever, and I still haven't been satisfied as to litigation costs on the suits that we've had previous. So I'm asking, I guess I can ask the county attorney to ask back. I can do that?
We've already requested that information for fact and
Okay.
your response.
Well, did you request it in this form? What I want it requested in this form, that I want to know the total litigation cost of Crum and Tucker versus Wakulla. Settlement cost, I want to know what fact incurred in defending that. They didn't have any cost in that. Well, just put it in writing for me. And then I want to see the Log Creek lawsuit as to the cost of settlement of Log Creek, what the county may have paid to settle Log Creek, and also the cost incurred by fact in defending that between Lost Creek and the county, and also Mr. Kessler, what individually, if FACT defended Mr. Kessler individually in that case, what the cost was to the county on that defense, as well as the settlement figures.
Well, Jerry, the cost of the county is going to be zero, I would assume, for the cost to litigate.
Absolutely.
They have cost, but, I mean, that's why we're a member of FACT, is for them to defend us.
Yeah,
right?
but there's a cost. FACT doesn't...
Yeah, there is a cost.
But they may or may not give that to us.
They work for us.
They still have no obligation to give it.
Then they could probably, if they can't do what the board asked them to do, we may need to change our defense.
I understand that, but all of them would say the same thing. I'm
Well,
just telling you, we
that's-
haven't received it, we've asked for that, and we have not received anything.
Will you ask again?
Is there a motion on
We'll
the
ask
floor?
again. We'll ask again.
Wait a second. I want to make sure that we ask FACT to give us the information
a lot of
on what their
discussion without
cost what the cost that they incurred.
Jerry, you want to make a motion, let's get something
Yes,
rolling.
I make that motion. Make sure that we get the wording right.
Repeat the motion, please.
I'll repeat the motion as the chair. I think it's one of my duties. His direction was to direct staff to ask FACT to give us all the costs incurred in the Crum-Tucker lawsuit and Log Creek lawsuit, whether they be incurred by the county or whether they be incurred by FACT or their insurance carriers.
Or whether they be incurred on Mr. Kessler's behalf.
Well, that's what I said, all costs associated with it, irregardless of the person.
FACT did not cover Crum-Tucker.
Well, then, whoever covered them.
That was the
Is that the gist of what you were trying to say? Okay, is there a second on that motion?
I mean, I'll second that. I understand that they may not be required to give it to us. I guess it doesn't hurt to ask, so why not?
Okay, let's get the citizens real quick, okay? Chuck Hess?
Chuck Hess, 112 Lake Ellen Circle. I'm not sure what this proves, because it seems to me that the whole point of those lawsuits was about procedure that the county followed, not about the law. And until you know, it's just like if you're out and you're a policeman and you arrest a murderer, okay, and you forget to Mirandize him, he's going to get off. And it's not that you don't need a law against murder. It's that you didn't do it right. And just because the county didn't do the procedures right and it cost them money doesn't make the law invalid. Thank you.
Thank you. James Hennessy? James, go home. Mr. Lambeau?
I will pass.
Thank you, sir. Bob, did you call? Come on. Come on up there, Bob. I'm eating Chris's cookies.
Remember, we're all different.
They think to be gone.
Thank you for bringing this up, Commissioner Moore. This is a question that needs to be asked. Some of it was procedure. Crum-Tucker was procedure. With Spring Creek, I already mentioned this tonight. The judge ruled on it, and then it was appealed, and another judge ruled on it. There was quite a bit of cost incurred. Now, FACT may have paid some money that we're not responsible for if they're our insurance. That may or may not be true, but the county certainly incurred some costs because our council had to follow the case to some degree, and that'll certainly cost us. So there was cost involved in this, and with Crum-Tucker, as the attorney mentioned, that the FACT wasn't a part of that. So we incurred all the legal fees. We paid them back their legal fees, essentially, $117,000 is what I heard. So that may or may not be true, but I don't want to get in trouble over specifics, but I'm going to throw that number out there. About $200,000 for Spring Creek. I'm going to throw that number out. Maybe it's specific, maybe not. And then all the legal fees and those things need to be added up. I agree. There's an argument that can be made by Commissioner Kessler that Crum-Tucker didn't actually. We didn't lose that money because of the wetlands ordinance, but if it wasn't for the wetlands ordinance, we never would have been in that spot. So I think it's important that we get to the bottom of this. Thank you.
Bill Andrew?
I think the county attorney has already been requested to give information on this point and wrote a memorandum, and now you're trying to direct a specific question to get the answer that you want. I think if you really want the truth, ask her to give the opinion as to what the cost was for, what it was, and who paid it. Get the full information out, not have a specific limited question to try to get an answer that you want. Thank you.
You want to follow his suggestion, or you just want a lump sum number?
I'm just bothered by the fact that we have an insurance carrier. If we lose X number of dollars, they don't eat that. I mean, that's not their business, the legal defense. They don't eat. They come back and bill that. They bill that to the counties. So when we lose or we use our insurance carrier, there is a cost result of that. So I just want to find out what the cost was involved in defending that case, both from the county standpoint and individually. I know Mr. Stewart talked to Mr. Kessler to settle the case after Mr. Kessler was on the county commission. He was an individual at that time, and Mr. Stewart tried to settle he settled the case with Mr. Kessler after he was a member of the Board of Commissioners. So it was an individual settlement, not a county settlement. I just want to know what the cost was, because they will build us back. They're not in a not-for-profit business. It's reasonable.
Howard, you wanted to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let me say some comments first. Well, maybe I'll say something again. Again, the statements that Mr. Moore has just made are inaccurate. And I'll be glad to expound on that at some later time. One of the things that, with my name being mentioned here, and it could be any of your names being mentioned here, if you get sued in the county and someone sues you as an individual while you're chair or while you're sitting on this board, the county will defend you, and those individual fees, if you're found at fault, you'll have to cover. And that's a big item here, is a lot of the things that attorneys sue and get settlements for don't mean that they were on the right side of the law. It means a lot of times that they have more money than the other parties are willing to spend. And those are called SLAPP suits. Those are called strategic lawsuits against public participation. They're retaliatory lawsuits that are intended to silence and intimidate and punish those who use either public forums or public office to try to speak up for the people. SLAPP suits. We brought this up before. They're evil. They're intimidating. And so when Commissioner Moore brings up my name in these discussions, I would really like him to point out what I did as either chairman or individually that was wrong and that caused an unnecessary expenditure by the county.
Let's get through the agenda items. Is there any more discussion on the item? All for the motion? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Heather, do you have anything?
No.
David?
I have a couple things.
Okay.
Reminder, we're still seeking 2 citizens to serve on the Industrial Development Authority, 1 member from the nature and heritage based tourism industry, and 1 member from the renewable energy and natural resource energy. So if you know of anyone, our deadline is this coming up Friday the 8th, and see our website for more information. Secondly, we've sent out a notice seeking 15 citizens to serve on the Charter Review Committee. Interested citizens must submit a statement of interest no later than November 22nd. See our website as well for more information. We'll rank those just as we talked about earlier. Secondly, Commissioners, we've got We've got a workshop, 2 workshops Thursday, starts at 4 o'clock is the Panacea Incorporation Initiative, and at 5 is the airport master plan. Secondly, on the agenda item for the code board, understand those fines are continuing to rock on. Understand the liens are still in place. All this does is kicks the can down the road. We haven't solved anything here tonight. We gotta have some type of enforcement. What do y'all want to do?
I would like to.
Heather, Jerry, since we're at the same meeting, he was on, well, there wasn't a second on it. Can Jerry bring it back up?
Yeah.
By Robert's Rules of Order?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Howard, I think you had the original motion. Would you like to remake that motion on the liens, Code Enforcement Board liens?
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to second it?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All right, we need to give people a chance to...
Was it for number 1 and number 3 to send?
That was Howard's original motion,
Okay.
correct. She's here. Yeah. Ma'am? Sue Strickland.
Hi, I'm Sue Strickland, and I had owner financed that property. And whenever they started throwing garbage and everything, I got with Jamie Boz, and we tried to get them to clean up, which the sheriff was called upon us, and we were not allowed to go on this property. When we finally spent thousands of dollars for a lawyer, and then finally come here, they allowed us to go and clean up the property, which we did. $300 later of garbage we took to the dump, had somebody pay somebody to clean it up, and now the lien that has been put on there is overwhelming because we have paid all the money we have to keep this land, paid the thousands of dollars of taxes, and now we got $5,000 worth of liens, and there needs to be something done because I was not protected. They should have been fined. They're the ones that threw their household garbage in that yard and refused to let us own that property. And now you want to foreclose on my property. I'm upset that this is going to be done to me, and I'm just trying to make an honest living. There needs to be something implemented when you rent, that you got some kind of protection of people that want to trash your place, and you have no rights.
Ma'am, because the situation is just like you, I'm not voting to foreclose on your property. I will vote against I will vote against it every time I have a chance.
I want forgiveness.
Yes.
I understand that you can do that.
We'll have to go through the procedure of forgiveness, but as far as tonight, I'm not going to vote to foreclose on your property or any of these others.
But I really would like something else done on behalf of homeowners that rent their places out or owner finance. They don't have a leg to stand on, and there needs to be something implemented of those people that destroy other people's property. They need to be reckoned with.
Let me ask Heather a question.
Ma'am, if you would, if you could contact me tomorrow morning, in my office is right across the street, and we'll get something worked out on your property.
I did do forgiveness today.
That's right. Okay, you did turn it in, so Jamie did call you. Very good. We'll get something in the works.
There was a procedure, let me just explain it, from my understanding. There was a procedure to ask for these liens to be forgiven, but that was never asked for, is that correct?
We had hired an attorney to do that, but she didn't do it correctly.
Well, that's the process, and this just wasn't used, so hers will be worked out.
I went through the same thing. I don't want to drag this out too far. I bought a house in Tarpine and fixed it up. I requested the liens be forgiven because I paid all the costs and,
correct.
And it was granted. So I'd be more than willing to, the same situation there. So I think there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, we'll walk your application on through. Just get up with us in the morning, okay?
Thank you. But I really would like something implemented with rent.
Well, part of that could be taken care of through lease agreements, and maybe in the future, if you want to lease it, we can, because a lot of that can be taken care of through a properly worded lease agreement.
I think it broke me from that.
Right. Well, but it's still, that's how you would take care of that.
Right. A little more knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What property is this now?
$5,100 lien with at least one.
Municipal way?
Municipal
Yeah,
way?
municipal way. No, not municipal way, no. That's right.
It's not even there. That's not on our list. It's not even on the list.
We can take care of that.
No.
No, it's not on the list. No. That's right. She received a letter.
Ma'am, we're not even voting on yours tonight. You're not even on the list.
Yeah.
There you go.
Now you got to see what they have
Be proactive.
It's
That's
on
right.
the 10 that were approved
Yes,
before.
this is a additional 6 in addition to the 10 that's already been approved.
Right,
But I got a couple things, now that this has been seconded and brought up, I got some things I want to say about it. All right, here we are again, like I said, all we're seeing is addresses, But now this 89 Municipal Way, I just want you to understand that if you remember right, earlier in Sop Choppy, we forgave the liens of, there was 2 neighboring properties. We forgave then the same person who still passed away owns this one, as well as he did the other one. So we forgave the one. Well, this is the one next door. Well, what's sitting on this property is, which has been completely cleaned up. This property was completely cleaned up right along with the other. What's sitting on this property is a house with asbestos siding. So say if we was to take ownership of it, then we own a house with asbestos siding. And, whenever you try to do anything with that, you're going to run into a lot of money.
Did they request a waiver? They did not?
No.
They had the opportunity to request.
They have an opportunity to do that.
I'm sorry.
They had the opportunity, but I mean, okay, say if this person wants to give the house to the county to get from paying the $5,100, well, and we accepted it, well, then we own a house with asbestos siding, which runs into a whole lot of other issues way beyond this $5,100 than if we tried to move it or whatever else, And also the other property, this other one on 1518 Sop Choppy Highway, that property's been cleaned up for well over almost 2 years long. And the history with that property in particular is if someone owned it, they let some transients stay there. The transients did trash it up. Code enforcement got involved. The property's completely cleaned up, totally natural. There's not even nothing whatsoever left. I mean, it's natural. And half of that property is a pond. But there, $30,000 fine that's on it, and the property's been cleaned up for almost 2 years. So that brings you back to this, to where, I feel like this should be compliance driven, but there again, it's too often revenue driven, and these things show us about the money. And I'm not about that.
We haven't, realize these are just fines accumulated. We don't even, half the time, we're not after the fines. At the end of the day, we got it, and that's what you don't understand, is the fine, until the person reacts and lets us know, just like this lady, they let it go. So how are we to know that? The only way we can do that is to prove procedure to move the thing forward, and this is the way we're moving it forward until we get some reaction out of the person. We can't read minds. We can't do all that stuff. How else are we supposed to do that? We can't.
I understand, but I'm just not going to vote to foreclose on someone's property.
How else are you going to do it if you can't get a reaction out of the owner?
Mr. Edwards, we're going to have to ask you to leave the meeting if you don't quiet down.
No, I was just making a point. Just understand. We have no mechanism. We have no mechanism to understand that. We have to go through our procedure, and our procedure to only get these people to, some of these folks, to the table is to present a lien on their property. But that's the reason we brought to you guys at the last meeting to put it on your put it on the tax bills as we do clean up. It's going to clean this up, but we got to get through all of this stuff.
As we go forward, as we go forward. But I believe these people can be offered amnesty. The property's done been cleaned up.
Well, and that's
great. But somebody's got to talk to us, Richard. We can't do it. I can't do it talking at his wall. You know what I mean?
Well, we'll have to contact them, but I will not vote. I will not vote to.
That's the reason they're on this list.
I understand, but I will not vote to foreclose on someone's property.
I don't run out of here after this and file foreclosure petitions. The first thing I do, which is not part of the statutory process, but I do as a matter of courtesy, is to send them a letter saying, we've been authorized to foreclose, this has been sitting on your property, please contact us. We would love an opportunity to come up with a compromise or a settlement or a payment plan even in order to clean these things up. That's what we do first. We give that opportunity because I recognize that a lot of people may not be able to pay the whole thing, but they may be able to cover the costs, and we may be able to bring some of these items back to you to clean them up without the need to file in court.
In the case
we have not foreclosed on no properties in Wakulla County.
I like the way you said that. But the one I had in Tarpine, the administrative fees were paid on that one. That's why I was able to waive the other fees. But the administrative fees did have to be paid.
Right.
Basically,
it's about 2.5, 3 months when the system starts. The person has that amount of time. I talked to Jamie about this. They have that amount of time to call, to ask, to ask for help, whatever. If my deal is, if they clean up the property, if we'll get to this in a hurry, keep these fees down. If they'll clean up the property, my feeling is I'll waive everything except the absolute bottom line on the cost.
That's what the code board does. They do that on a regular basis. Realize these are the folks that would not respond.
Yeah, please, if you're out there and we've got a lien on your property, if you're in, give me a call, and I'm going to ask you, has your property been cleaned up? And if your property has been cleaned up, then I'll come with you to the code board or to whoever to ask for forgiveness. But if you clean your property up, you can do that. Just don't watch a ball game one evening, and don't watch soap operas. Just clean your property up, and I'll help you try to get a relief on that. But you just have to.
Okay, Ralph, you want to add anything?
I just don't see any way to financially benefit from taking these properties. I mean, the way I see it, there's two ways we can lose money. We can keep putting time and effort toward it and paying staff, or we can take these properties and I believe it's going to be a negative drain. 51 Brown Boulevard is the current assessed value is $7,930 for the whole property, home, and everything. There's a 1963 mobile home on there. You're not going to be able to turn that back and sell it. You're going to end up putting that in a dumpster. It's going to cost us more than $8,000 to clean it up. The Sop Choppy Highway property, there's $30,000 worth of liens. The property is current assessed values at $24,000. But from what I see, there's a $35,000 mortgage that's still out there on the property. That's the only one out of the 6 that I found that there's a mortgage on. So we're completely upside down on that one. The Sunrise initial glance, it looks like there's some value there, but from what I understand, that property has been condemned, and so for it to be built back, it's going to have to be built on stilts. It's right off of Masha Sands at the corner of Sunrise and Masha Sands. So if we take that property, we're going to have to demolish it as well. So, I understand that we want these things cleaned up, but I see this as a negative drain on resources that are already tight. So I don't see any way to support this.
Can we not take them and just put them on the market and let the next buyer come back?
We have not taken any properties in Wakulla County.
But if
nor do we plan to.
Upside down. Everything that I've got in red there is upside down, and Sunrise will be upside down if we got to spend money to demolish. There's 2 structures on that property.
Is that the one on the corner of Sunrise and Masha Sands? Are they gone?
No, there's people.
Still
there's
there.
people in it.
They're there. But the point is we're trying to work with these folks and come to a resolution on this that is amenable to them and to the county. And that's the whole process. We don't want this to go to foreclosure.
I understand.
But we've got to walk that way in order to get people to the plate, to the table.
More discussion?
Well, I'm going to stick to my issue on this. I mean, I spent 3 weekends in the rain trying to clean up, trying to help a neighbor clean up their property to satisfy their code enforcement issue. Commissioner Tompkins also volunteered his time as well there, and we were able to get that issue cleaned up. And I didn't spend 3 weekends in the rain helping this one person keep from losing their place to turn around and vote to foreclose on someone else. So,
and we won't do that. It's just like we talked about in our meetings. You said he wants to work out a payment plan.
Mm-hmm.
We'll work that out with him.
Right.
That's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And understand, this was a petition from the residents was the ones that we're not going out looking for these. These are things that other people have turned into to the code board. So I understand that, but it's just like we talked about.
Right.
We'll work out a payment plan.
All right, any more discussion? 3 years ago. All for the motion? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-2.
Thank you.
All right.
That's all I got.
That was easy.
I basically, please excuse me, if you have a code enforcement and you have cleaned your property, I guess give me a call. Give me a call. And I think you can give any of the commissioners a call. We'll do what we can do to help you to whatever.
And so will staff as well.
And yes, sure.
We're not, trust me, we try to resolve this stuff as best we can. I mean, we want everything cleaned up and done and over with.
All right, we're going to give citizens to be heard, part 2.
Take a quick break.
Go ahead.
I have a wetlands issue.
S. Strickland? Is that Summer?
back, Ralph.
Did you want to talk again? No. Okay. David Damon?
I'll wait till all the commissioners are there.
Okay.
This is the last opportunity for citizens to be heard, right?
I mean, Howard's gone and Ralph's gone. If he wants to wait, we'll wait.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Or we
It's
can...
up to you.
Yeah.
TV's still on.
Yeah, I'd like to, for them to hear.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yes. Steve Cushman?
Thank you.
You want to wait? Okay. Jenny Brock?
Go. Just go.
Slambo?
Want to wait?
You want to wait, all right. Chuck, I know you want to wait. Okay. Does anybody else need to use the bathroom?
Fine, it's perfect. What? Are you cold? What's wrong, Chris? Oh. Oh. I got a jacket. You want me to go get you a jacket? Look at those chill bumps.
I know.
Was Ralph behind you in line, Howard?
Yes.
Bathroom?
Yes, he said he was about to have a problem.
You get no respect around here, do you?
Question this tonight about Lottie Roddenberry.
Yes.
Howard, you want to go ahead and talk about your discussion item, or waiting on Ralph? The citizens wanted to wait till everybody was here before they talked. The Lottie Roddenberry recognition, was that?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, in working with the voter lists, with the wetlands petition that's going around, I noticed that there were some pretty old people in our county. One of them lives in Soft Choppy, and she's 102 years old. Her name is Lottie Roddenberry. Another one is 102 years old, a little younger, 102, lives in Soft Choppy. And yeah, and then
Number three.
There's a third one. I think it's 101, trailing, trying to catch up, lives in Soft Choppy. So some people say it might be in the water, but I spoke with David Roddenberry, her son. Some of us have known David and Lottie for some years, and asked if, well, I'll tell you a story, since we have some time. I was at the Hazardous Waste Day, working at our petition drive, and David had come up, and then I had spoken to him socially, and I told him this strange fact. And he said, you're serious? And I said, yeah. Well, his mother was sitting in the passenger seat of the car, and she looked at me and she said, well, that must mean I'm something special, right? And I said, yeah, it does. I think you're right on that. And she thought a little bit, and she looked over at me and she said, is there any money in it? So at 102, I wish all of you here and everywhere have that mental capacity. I thought it would be really neat to single out Lottie as the oldest registered voter in Wakulla County, and as a board, present her with a little plaque, which is the first sheet of our voter registration roll as organized by birth date. And she'll be here next commission meeting, and maybe some people can show up and honor her in that way.
Very good.
Good story, but the other 6 that are over 105 actually live in Smith Creek, but... David? Just kidding.
They're not registered. They're not registered.
Yeah, they're not registered to vote, though.
We want to see their birth certificates. David Damon, thank you, Commissioners. I want to address a couple things. I thought some things happened tonight that were pretty despicable. Ralph Thomas, the personal attacks on citizens and suggesting things. You just throw things out there. And I know you went on earlier tonight about how truthful you are, like you do as you lead up to these kinds of things typically. But I want to bring something to people's attention, and that's at a recent planning commission meeting where you were there with some poor landowner that couldn't use his property, and you've got it on your website too, and he can't use his property because he bought these almost 5 acres, and he can't even put a house there, and he can't get the setback, and this poor guy, and now he can't even sell it. Well, guess what? That poor guy that was at the planning commission meeting that can't sell his property, what you failed to tell the rest of the story about was that he is a realtor from Tallahassee. He bought this property in January for $5,900, spongy wetland. So he's an out-of-town realtor, bought some wetlands, wants to flip it for 4 or 5 times what he paid for it, and he's mad because he can't. And you're there at his defense saying, this is an example of why we need to throw out the wetlands ordinance, when that's actually the perfect example of why we need to keep the wetlands ordinance. We don't need people coming in buying swampland and then demanding that they be able to flip it and get permitting for somebody to be able to build on it. That's shameful. I mean, that is just, I just don't get it. Why you would put somebody out like that. At that same meeting, another realtor came up and talked about how he couldn't do anything with his property. It turns out his parents had some property and they were given a variance. These were the people put forth to speak against the wetlands ordinance. Over and over again, we've heard less than the truth. And it would be nice if you would stick with the facts, stick with the truth, stop the personal attacks and throwing things out there suggesting that somebody might have done something wrong here. I don't think anybody did anything wrong. Half this county lives on or around wetlands. That's no big deal. It doesn't mean you can't want to preserve them. I think honesty, truthfulness, and integrity needs to be brought back to this commission because I think it's drifted away. One last thing, I'd suggest that Mr. Moore look into the science about why the beaches are closed. And I'm glad to hear you're finally about the...
I didn't hear him.
look into the science about why the beaches are closed. I think there's some confusion there on your part. And I'm also glad to hear that you're finally about our kids because you fought the community center for so long before you finally got behind it. So I'm glad to hear you're looking out for our kids.
Thank you. Steve Cushman.
Thank you.
Steve Cushman from Panacea. I want to kind of change the whole pace of everything tonight. And I know you guys passed a resolution a few meetings ago about supporting the oyster industry in Wakulla County. I don't know how much y'all are reading in the newspapers. I just completed a 2-week study of assessments from Skipper Bay, basically from west of Shell Point all the way to the western shoreline right there behind Jerry's house. And it's a lot more devastating than what we had anticipated. Basically, there's about 223 million oysters out there, less than 25 millimeters in size, which is that big. We will not have a spawning of any significant value in the spring. We may get something in the fall, but even when that occurs, there's not enough substrate out there for them to set on to produce spat. Our oyster industry is dying, and it will be dead within 2 years if we don't step up and do something now. The governor just came through this county on his way to Franklin County to declare it a disaster area in an attempt to pull federal funding for relief down there in a massive shelling project. It's the same type project we need to do here. I know Mr. Moore has supported a proposal out there to build some artificial reefs, and I don't oppose that. It's something that we also need here. Our bays are dying. Our oceans are dying. Population demand in this world is so high that the oceans cannot sustain the seafood that we need to supply. We have over-harvested. I live next to Rock Landing Marina. I sit there and I work on proposals and budgets and reports that I'm finalizing, which I hope to have you guys here in the next week or so. And I watch guys come in at 1:30 in the morning oystering. Oystering in Florida starts at sunrise and is over by 2 o'clock. What they're doing out there at 1:30, I have no idea. FWC's turning their cheek to it. You call them in Carabel and they're too busy at 1:30 in the morning. So we're not getting enforcement. We're devastating the crop out there, and the bad thing is these guys need a paycheck, and they're going to get it any way they can. So I don't necessarily blame them for what they're doing, but the end result is that they have devastated the brood stock. We have no way to respawn next year, and our bars will die. Those bars are critical habitat for every species of finfish, crabs, everything that we depend on in our seafood industry, and it's dying. So I would encourage all of y'all, and I don't know whether you need to pass another resolution, but somebody needs to make an attempt to get the state's attention that we are a disaster area also, and that we need our share of that funding. I have put together 4 companies. We have created a hatchery in Panacea. We are actively spawning and working on genetic enhancement right now to produce a quality brandable oyster for Wakulla County. And I think that's part of the opposition we're seeing out of Franklin County, is they're scared to death that aquaculture is going to work here. And that when we do that, it's going to kill the Apalachicola oyster. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lambu? Chuck? Get the last word.
Oh, thank you for, I hope, 3 minutes.
Yes, sir.
I mean, why are you cutting down the time that people talk on things? They come here prepared for a 3-minute speech, and they can't get it out. I know you're all getting paid. You can wait a little bit longer. But I think what you have done to the wetlands is the festival today. You did have public hearings on this where people could really talk and get their say. Now, Mr. Thomas talks a long time. I certainly didn't have that opportunity to talk that long. But again, Mr. Thomas, why don't we have a debate somewhere where I can talk as long as you? You're a very good talker. You probably would make me look terrible. Why don't you?
Don't do it, Ralph. Chuck, you get the last word of the evening.
Last word of the evening. Well, that's good. Well, I've kind of been doing this a long time. And, you know, I always get into the science of things. And one of the studies they've done shows that, you know, people, when they're listening to things, if they don't agree with it, they don't listen to it, and they ignore it. Doesn't matter whether it's true or not. If they don't agree with it, if it's different from their worldview, they ignore. They'll ignore the science. They'll ignore all evidence to the contrary. And what happens, and what's happening in our county, is a classic example. The science says that we should protect our wetlands through buffers. Our science says the bigger the buffer, the better. That's what the science says. But because it doesn't agree with your worldview, you've basically closed off all discussion on the subject. Now, you know, I've come up here a lot, and I have never been so ignored and seen such disregard for the opinions of the citizens of the community from the board. And it's really disappointing. And, you know, I've been coming up here for almost 12 years on a regular basis and talking to you on a regular basis. And I know I don't do much good, okay? But usually the board at least acknowledges and discusses the opinions put forward. This board seems to just disregard them. And I think you're just very closed-minded. Thank you.
Thank you. Ralph, any discussion items?
I guess the only thing is, when you're taking on flack, you must be directly over the target. That's all I have to say.
Okay, Jerry?
Okay. From the standpoint of the oysters, we're in a process of appointing a Marine Advisory Committee, working with the FWC, artificial reef people, to get a program where we can professionally go down this road. So it's probably the first time it's been done, but we miss something like Franklin County. You know, they go over there and give those folks money, and for whatever reason, we didn't have anything in place, but we're trying to
I'm sorry, I thought I heard on NPR today where they
Well, that's what I was just fixing to tell you.
Franklin, Wakulla,
Yes.
I've got it up
all
right
got
here.
declared a disaster.
I've got it up right here, but...
Okay, good.
It's in response to a recent request from Governor Rick Scott. The U.S. Small Business Administration issued an economic injury declaration for Franklin, Gulf, Liberty, and Wakulla counties. The declaration will allow the Apalachicola Bay communities to offset the damage caused by collapse of their commercial. So it is basically a means to get low interest loans, and so nothing more than that at this point.
Yes, I do listen in.
We're also, and I gave Mr. Cushman my card, we've also, there's another opportunity out there that we're pursuing. I had a meeting last week in Tallahassee on that, so I'm not ready to announce anything yet.
Okay.
But, okay.
Basically, we had a new restaurant open in town. Zaxby's just opened yesterday, probably today. In the economic benefit of Zaxby's, we tend to think that if we have a big industry coming, there's 100 people going to be hired. That's unbelievable. That's great. We go out and solicit them and whatever. Zaxby's had nobody go solicit them hardly, but they're going to provide 40 jobs for our county. 40 people in our county will start working. They started working today in our county that probably didn't have a job. And those people love those jobs. Those jobs are important to the people who have them. Zaxby is a good corporate citizen, so I would like to welcome Zaxby's. And you get 40 people with Zaxby's, you get another retail store, you get another 40, you get another 40. The first thing you got 100, you got 200. Pretty soon you got a large number of people in just small, independent retail businesses. Even though Zaxby's a corporate company, the fellow who owns Zaxby's out of Tallahassee. It's his money, it's his risk, and I welcome them.
I hope he's got a big truck to haul off all the money they made today. Because
Go get a salad.
Sir?
Go get a salad.
Yeah.
the place was packed at 3 o'clock. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's just good to have them. I would like to congratulate the school superintendent and the school board. They had a ribbon cutting for a automotive repair program at Wakulla High, which will operate jointly with VOTEC. It's actually behind Superlou, but Superintendent Bobby Pierce said the district is looking at adding other programs such as welding and HVAC. Previous Superintendent Miller made the statement that college was not necessarily for everyone. Mr. Miller also said that he had one of his sons that was working, I think maybe in South Dakota, that was making twice as much money as one of his graduate sons who has a college degree. So I would compliment them on their programs to benefit young people, other than the fact that we have to send them to college, because in my opinion, we're spending 9 out of $10 educating 1 out of 10 people. We just need to turn that away, and people who want to go to college should really have to believe that they've got a reason for being there. We need to spend more money on vocational and train more people that we've just been bypassing in our education system. So I would like to compliment them on that. And that's it.
Thank you. Now we've added a second citizens to be heard at the end of the meeting.
Goodness.
Is anybody entertaining at all the idea of moving the meeting back to the time it was, which was 5 o'clock? I think given the second citizens to be heard, we have given ample opportunity. I know the staff would be giddy, thrilled to death, because right now they got a blank hour when they get off work at 5. There's not enough time to go home and get something to eat and come back. They can do just like they used to. 5 o'clock the meeting starts. That's the way it was. And if there's any support for it, I'll bring it up as agenda item. Other than you, Jerry, I know you support it. I'm talking to Ralph, Richard, and Howard.
Well, I would be speaking against it, because citizens come to the meeting not to speak just under citizens to be heard, but also speak under agenda items that they have. Look, our public hearings are right at the beginning of a meeting. So if you have that person, most of our people work up in Tallahassee still, have to commute and get here for the 5 o'clock start. they're going to miss out on the public hearings.
I'll take that as a no.
Correct.
I'm gonna stick with Howard on that one.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm gonna stick same thing.
That's why we have discussion.
And another reason, we just need to reach a point of consistency where we're not back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You know, we need
I
to,
want to try to go back the way it
you
was
know,
for years, which was 5 o'clock. How many years have it been 5 o'clock? Evelyn, I'm sure you know. 17 years the meeting's been at 5 o'clock, and we just changed it a few months ago to 6. So you're right, I'd like to be consistent with the way we've been doing it the last 17 years, instead of just a whim.
Very good point.
Instead of just saying on a whim, well, people can't make it at 5, they've been making it for 17 years, so let's change it to 6. But I don't want to waste anybody's time with agenda item if it's not going to pass. That's all I got.
all right, the thing that I want to bring up is like what I was talking about earlier. I wanted to give an exact explanation of why it was that I didn't offer a second to the two amendments that was offered to the wetlands ordinance. For one, Commissioner Kessler, along with the Wakulla Wetlands Alliance, Mr. Lambu, and several others have been going all over the county trying to get signatures for a petition. Now, that petition says that there's no change. They're petitioning for it to go on a referendum for there to be no change to the wetlands ordinance without a referendum or without a 5-0 vote of the board. But tonight, Commissioner Kessler was presenting two changes to the wetlands ordinance, but wasn't intending on putting that before the referendum or anything else, but at the same time we'll be out gathering more signatures to get that in there. It's also been made aware, even with the slideshow tonight, that many of the citizens who are out gathering petitions, they own wetland property. They just happen to also own property with that has a seawall. So both of those things were specific to where if how it was written, if one neighbor had a seawall, he'd be exempt. But if the next neighbor next door didn't have a seawall, he would be not exempt. So the way I read that written is there would be a select few of people that would, some of these same citizens who are out gathering petitions, some of them would be exempt while they were gathering petitions for it to be in effect for everybody else. So for those reasons tonight, I didn't offer a second, and I think the direction we're going is going to solve everything anyway.
Can I ask a question along those lines, Howard, if you don't mind? Actually, Howard, let's say your motion had passed, okay? Let's say both of them had passed, and we decide to move forward with that. Wouldn't that be a moot point, because the Wakulla Wetlands Alliance is trying to get the unamended version passed? That's the petition that's out there. They can't just go back and change it and say, well, the board voted to change it. They'd have to start all over again with the signatures. Is that correct?
I think what we may be missing it as a board, and why I brought up those amendments, proposed amendments, was to give this board an opportunity again to have a dialogue and not just have our heels dug in on one side or the other, and to come to a position that could compromise and stop the travel down this road.
I guess my
because
question...
I think that where we're going is not good for the county. So, you know, the real intent of these amendments was to start a dialogue. Someone else wanted to have a different change when you, Mr. Chairman, suggested, oh, I don't want to do these piecemeal, I want to do it all. That's exactly right. Have workshops, discuss this, and come forward with something that we can preserve the local protections rather than throw them out.
I guess my question was it a token agenda item, knowing that even if it had passed, it would make no difference if the referendum passed? It would be null and void. Is that correct?
No, that was not the intent.
That would be the effect, though, because they can't go back and change. The petitions have been signed based on the original wetlands ordinance. They'd have to go back and change it again. Anyway.
By a simple 5-0 vote, they could add those things right back into it.
I wish the spirit of compromise had been around.
Well, it still can be, and I think that, you know, again, what's the rush of going down this path? To me, the sensible thing is to at least wait and see how the wetlands petition and vote of the people, what the people have to say about this.
You know as well as I do how I was vilified when I tried to bring forth a compromise. But anyway, Rich, are you done?
Well, you know, it's just like I wanted to reiterate that ordinance, if either one of them would have passed, it would have created an exemption for a very small select group of people, while it meant for everybody else to still comply with the ordinance. I didn't see the compromise in that or where it would have been fair.
Dr. Kessler, go ahead.
Well, it was an attempt to compromise, and if you have some amendments that you think would be better than throwing out the entire local wetlands protection, I urge you to bring them forward.
And we still have discussion, I guess, to do on the wetlands ordinance itself. As you know, this is the comp plan.
Right.
Your ordinance can be stronger than your comp plan, but it just can't be weaker. And that's been my issue the whole time.
Okay. So,
Go ahead.
my turn?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first thing I want to address is the trash collection fee on the tax bill. And I thought I had brought this up before in discussion, and I don't think it went anyplace, or maybe I was told that it couldn't be done, but I'm bringing it up again because I met a fellow today that said, "You said you were going to do this," and I said, "You're right." And I said, "Listen to the meeting tonight, and I'll verbalize it again." Some of our senior citizens have difficulty in paying that lump sum, and they would like to see if there's any way of having that on some kind of prorated basis, that they can pay it, not be penalized for it, and not have to pay that one lump sum.
There's actually a statute was passed. They can make partial payments to the tax collector, and it's prorated amongst everything that goes in. They can make quarterly payments as well, but they could even come in and pay monthly payments if they want. They can accept partial payments now.
That's through the tax collector, not through the board.
The tax, all they gotta do is go to, that's right, go to the tax collector, and she works that stuff out all the time.
Okay, so that's on the books. They
Yeah.
can do it, and, okay, so if you're listening, and please try that. Okay?
What he said he was going to do.
Well, yeah, and I said what I was going to do, right. The item that we covered with the liens, our liens, one of the problems we had is that these fines were building up because everyone was bending over backwards for so long trying not to push the issue and go to code enforcement, and then when it got to code enforcement, still sort of lingering on. The expeditious handling of our liens now, is that going to have a positive effect of reducing that time?
Most definitely.
And the amount of lien, too.
And the amount of liens and everything.
Yeah.
This is, once we get these items cleaned up, we're
I think
we're in a much better position.
What I can glean, it's like getting a notice and say, hey, we're serious, guys. If you don't pay your phone bill, we're going to shut it off. And before that, you just don't take it serious. Well, you know, I'm not going to pay this. If we could get that notice sent out while the fines are only like $400 or $500,
Yes.
say, all right, I'll clean it up. I'll pay the fine. You guys are serious. You're going to take my property. So
Well, now we'll clean it up, put it on the tax bill if they don't pay it.
Yes, these are
And
what-
therefore, they'll pay attention to that.
Great. So I have, that's good. So I have 1, 2, 3 more things, quickly. You know, I hear in the arguments of the wetlands that everyone, you know, some people have what they have, and they don't want other people to have it. Oh, by the way, I don't have property with seawalls on it, and I'm still for the 75-foot setbacks, etc. But everyone, you know, there's being said, everyone should be able to have what you have, and you don't want other people to have it. And that's not true, but let's pretend we were going to allow everyone to have it that we know is bad building on the coast right now. So that, maybe we should dialogue with the refuge and have them let us develop the coastal area, because there's too many people to have everyone living on the coast like what was happening in Florida. When you looked at the development of Florida and looked at the population density, it's all around the coast. And that's where people like to be. And if we keep on making an argument for everyone having it, then we got to start destroying more wetlands. The issue of false statements, and I've been directing my comments to one commissioner, but I'm also directing it to the entire board and maybe the chairman. When we know that something is wrong that's being said, I think we have an obligation to set the record straight. And Commissioner Moore has said multiple times false statements about me, of having a non-disclosure statement with Mr. Crum as a result of a lawsuit. I've asked for his documentation. And maybe I'm emboldened a little bit this evening when I hear Mr. Lambu daring a commissioner to debate him. But I'm going to ask Commissioner Moore, when are you going to be man enough to apologize for your false statements?
No, we're not going to argue about that.
Okay,
I don't wish to argue, but that will never, ever happen. You can bring it up every meeting, but like I told you before, it'll be a cold day in whatever when I apologize to you for any reason, at any time, ever.
All right,
maybe you can understand that.
Excellent. We're at 9:12. It was an exceptionally, we had a lot of people speaking. But I think we had 23 people speak to that issue. If we had given each one of those 23 people another half minute, it would have represented a little less than 12 minutes. And I think we owe it to them. So maybe in the future, you might want to consider that, because people are taking time out of their lives to get here and speak on an issue.
And,
I understand where you're coming from.
at least I made it clear, and whoever's chairman next, if they, that's really the chairman's prerogative on how to move the meeting along. Louis, I'd be interested to know at some point, what percentage of our coastline is owned by the refuge or by the state? I don't know, I'm not asking you right now, but I'd dare say it's probably 95%.
We can look into that.
I don't know the actual percentage, but I know it stretches from one county line south of Sopchoppy all the way to the other county line east of Newport. I don't know what you was
when you come from
the whole southern half.
When you come from the river, Ocklackney River, your first access is Panacea, and that coastline is pretty much developed out. Then you go basically to Oyster Bay. That's pretty much developed out. Spring Creek, pretty much developed out. Shell Point, and then you go over to St. Mark's. I doubt if there's 100 lots that face the water. We're beating this bush over 100 lots that may face the water. 100 lots. And to just have the perception that some bad guy's going in there and push the dirt in and build and run through the swamp. The guy here today, he's not going to destroy that. It's just ludicrous.
All right. Any more discussion?
No.
All right, how about a motion to adjourn then?
Motion.
To adjourn? All right,
Sure you don't want to talk about wetlands a little bit more?
You can always reconvene and talk about
Did I run over? Okay.